So take this off screen because there's nothing happening there. We have Lux. Hey, Lux, how are you?
Hey, I came on because of the amazing trans issues being discussed, and yeah, I think that what she said was pretty much what was in Abbott's letter. So I think I would actually take the position that makes complete sense that she would talk about that.
Explain.
Well, in Abbott's letter, I believe it would technically be a letter. He wants to prosecute parents of trans children. So it seems like the attack is consistently on the parents for letting their kids be trans.
But she,
And yeah, it just seems like very reasonable given that.
what did she say that was included in that? Like I added, like when I was watching, I was like, oh, you're attacking trans kids. But what did she say specifically that was in that letter?
Just the idea of attacking trans kids. I didn't hear the specific. I heard your response and I saw her talking about it by saying that in general for the base, like that's something that they really seem to like.
Hmm.
Going by Abbott's like approval numbers after.
Does approval number significantly rise after he, once again attacked trans kids? With that
It
letter?
seems like it went up it's not clear exactly, but went up about 5% or not 5%. It went sorry, his disapproval went down about 5% it looks like.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
not great, but like more than it should be is the answer.
Yeah. He
Anything less than 0 is pretty good.
yeah, he Greg Abbott is not in a very good position at this point. And so like that's and what Wick and I have been talking about, right? Like all they have
Mhm.
is culture war about us to have, right? So he's like trying to save his governorship, and Trump I think has not either not endorsed him or something like that. But he's like desperately trying to tie himself to Trump. There was that speech where like Trump showed up in Texas, and he was just like he literally just said the words Trump, Trump, Trump a bunch of times, right? They say I like Trump, everyone. I love him, and so and he's attacked trans kids before, and he decided to do it again. Okay, well this will be a thing, right? Like I know they all hate those kids, so it's easy. I have no policy. I can't even change the energy infrastructure in my state, right? They had the deep freeze in Texas last year, where people like died, and like energy bills like went crazy. If you guys remember that moment, right? Because of lack of regulation in their energy sector, it was a completely unavoidable tragedy. But I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do fucking anything. The trans kids, right? And that's a big man for them.
Yeah, I mean, I have a friend in Texas, and their family's very transphobic, and they
Mm-hmm.
are and just right leaning, and they loved this. They ate this up.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've seen some of the message logs that they were sharing with my friend, and oh my god, they love this so much. This is such like a big thing for them, despite it not actually being that major. I'm pretty sure it's just a letter saying that they want prosecute. I don't think it's actual legislation. I think that it was based on a failed bill last year, so I don't think it will pass or anything will come out of it. But just the idea of attacking trans kids, or especially trans parents, right, loves that.
So one of the things that politicians have done for years and years and years, and something that's very effective, even though it shouldn't be, but it works, is posturing. They'll posture about these things. We look. Democrats do this too. They say they'll fix all these things and they don't do shit. Republicans say they'll do all these things, but then they don't do shit. And this is just another, I feel, kind of a posture. It's disgusting posturing, but unfortunately in that district, it's working. So
You mean
I don't know.
district? You mean yeah, state?
Sorry, my
No,
bad.
no problem, no problem, buddy. Um, but yeah, it works because that's all they want. But I really am curious, and we got to. I want to talk to some actual conservatives. Like, what do they want to see policy like? Like, what is a policy agenda for the Republican Party. I don't know. I don't have any conservatives here
So
right now.
at CPAC, and this is from your chat, Paradigm Shift gave a quote from CPAC that was about 20 minutes ago. It says, the people of America don't want to wake up and think about what the government is going to do next. They want the government to play a role in the background and effectively do nothing as they work on their merits, not for handouts. So again, it's not all the Republicans. I'm not saying, but you know, for all my life, there's been a portion of the Republican base who just wants the government to do absolutely nothing.
But that's even a lie. That's a lie even then, right? They'll say that, but they want the governments to do something, right? So they want a military, right? They want to expand that military. They want to increase funding there. That's the government doing something. They'll say that. They'll say those words exactly as you said them. They'll express that thought. But even then, they actually do have a policy agenda, whether they can like say that or not, right?
Yeah. Because a lot of Republicans actually do want, but they're trying to placate to a portion of their base. You understand? They're trying to placate a portion of their base who actually does want the government to do nothing, and they keep falling for it. Just like when you placate, the Democrats placate to certain portions of their base, and keep saying, "Yeah, we'll help you. Yeah, we'll help you. Yeah, we'll help you."
Then, no. I'm disagreeing with you in terms of what that portion wants. I'm saying the portion you're talking about. I'm saying they say that there's a portion that says I want government to do nothing, right? Except what I actually want them to do. So what I want is government to form a bureaucratic arm and a policing arm, right? That will attack women for having abortions, right? Like I want a bureaucratic state there to keep track of women's bodies, and if they dare decide that they're gonna have control of it, right? That they will take control of their own reproductive rights. Well, then I want the police state to punish them, right? Like that's government doing something. Again, they're not going to articulate it that way, but that's government doing something, right? That's a policy agenda to say that I want to limit reproductive rights. And I don't remember if the government of the Republican response mentioned reproductive rights. I don't remember. But yeah, like that's something, right? So again, I'm wondering, what do conservatives actually want? I don't know, right? Okay, so debate board, come on, you're like yelling at me about this.
Come and tell me why.
Tell me, like, we don't understand. I'm asking conservatives. I don't know. You can explain to us what exactly you want, right? Okay.
Educate us, ignorant, lying masses. Now's your chance. You have the power.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I'm like, I just don't know what their proactive agenda might be, and of course, what they like. That's even too broad of a sense, right? There's, as you were pointing out, there are different segments of the Republican base, of the conservative base, right?
They're not a monolith.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know, other than attacking trans kids, other than limiting the rights of women to control their own bodies, right? I don't know what they actually want. Yeah, what is the agenda? This woman, this governor, the governor of Iowa, did not help elucidate that.
Yeah, I can only speak for the conservatives that are in my family and that I know, and for what positive things they want changed, for what positive things they want to happen. You're right. Expansion in the military, expansion of these laws that protect, quote unquote, protect, the police, protect, children by remove their masks and things like that. They're very anti a lot, and that's, again, when I talk to my family and friends who are conservative, it's all, we don't want this to happen. We don't want this to be going down. We don't want this going on. But as for positive things, there's not a lot that I can see. But I'm not a conservative, so again, if debate board would come on here,
debate board is complaining. Yeah, hold on. Hold on one second. Okay, debate board is out here complaining at us, right? Telling me that, like, oh, I don't know what they want. So, like, one, I say, here's what I think they want, right? And I think they want, and I know they want, is to attack women in their ability to control their bodies, right? That's absolutely what they want. So I say that, and then he says, oh, no, like, how could you say that? That doesn't make any sense, right? Like, you are painting Republicans in an unfair manner. I'm like, okay, all right, well then come on and tell me what they want. And you're like, oh, you're pretending you don't know. Okay, buddy, whatever, right? Okay, you can stay out there. That's fine. Stay out there and complain. That's good. But anyway, we have a new person here. Paradigm Shift. Hello, nice to meet you.
Hi, people have been waiting for me to do this for a while. I'm not gonna be here for a long time. Oh shit.
Hello.
What?
I
What?
came on
Why?
Devil.
Okay. Paradigm shift. I don't know. Go ahead, please.
Oh yeah, okay, sorry. So the idea is like the Republicans can't come up with a simple platform, right? And my issue with it is that I can tell you what the Republicans want, but like people are not going to agree with me because I'm gonna go all the way straight. Like I'm gonna tell you the truth. Republicans want the downfall of like the state effectively because the only way they can continue to amass power is to literally weaken the strongholds or the bonds that social programs create. With the social programs, that gives people a way or a grip up. And I'm not talking about this from like some political, back. I'm a poor person in America. I'm on food stamps. Like I'm telling you right now, if you reduce the amount of food stamps, if you reduce the amount of health care, you effectively can kill off a part of the population by telling them it's on the merits of their own skills that the reason why they're dying at the rate or from the diseases or from the poverty, you can tell them that it's their fault. And then you can continue to concentrate wealth because capitalism is literally the idea of making profit off labor to venture into more capital. Without capital, you cannot participate in capitalism. Republicans need the capitalism in order to stay in power because their rules stick specifically to those who have capital. So if you just keep going around in a circle and you keep kicking people out of the circle of capital, what ends up happening? A lot of people are going to be left to the wayside. They don't want the Democrats to hold too much power because the longer they hold power, the longer we're going to have this conversation about, yeah, why don't we cancel student debt? Yeah, money isn't real. Why don't we give people health care? Yeah, why don't we do all of this? And when people start waking up to that, it's going to be a problem because conservatism doesn't stand on its own 2 feet, especially in this goddamn country. Like, I don't know what that dude was on, but like that's the Republican
So I
vote
just
for me.
okay. I hear you on that. And thank you for coming in with all that energy. Like shout out to
Sorry,
you.
that's
Oh no,
me.
I
That's
love it.
what I
No,
do.
I love it. No, I love the energy. We love it. But no, like the other people who hate those exact same talking points we're discussing, right? Like, yeah, why can't we have all these other things, right? Like, why can't we have free childcare? Why can't we pay for more medicines, right? The other people who hate that are fucking Democrats, right? Liberals hate that. The liberals in power, Nancy Pelosi hates that. She fucking couldn't stand that shit, right? When that shit was brought up. Like, so, I mean, I feel like that's not a conservative thing. That's anything that's left or right of progressives.
Okay, I could. You know what? I see where you're logically coming at that from that. So I'm not gonna sit here and be like, no, you're wrong on that. But what I could say to add to that is that I feel like the withdrawal of like anybody on this left. It's like the mix between progressivism and neoliberalism. Now I know obviously you guys know this because you talk about this way more than I do. In the regard of having chats like every single night for 6 nights. Go subscribe to PrimeCayes, by the way.
Please.
But what I feel like is the drawback is that a lot of these politicians, especially the older people that have been there, have been drawing all of their money from these groups that are also supporting Republicans, that are also supporting wars, that are also supporting like price hikes on engineering, on medicine, on science. Like they're in that bed, but they want to look like the nice guys. So now you have this ring of progressives that might not have that same access to that money. So they're echoing the sentiments of like the people who are actually on the ground, and that's reaching deaf ears. So that's why I said, like, I'm not going to sit here and disagree with you on like that's not a conservative thing. It is a left and right thing. Like people on the, if we really wanted to pass legislation for anything that we wanted, like we could do that. There's a reason why that's not happening, and that's more of a left problem than a right problem. But I can't sit here in good faith and say to you, oh, it's both of our problems when there's still 48 Democrats in the Senate who are willing to vote one way, and there's a whole side of Republicans that all say no, regardless of what it is. Like,
It's not regardless
the
of
one
what it
thing
is,
the one
though.
thing I disagree with you there, and I'll drop it, and then for everyone else to jump in. But the one thing I disagree with you is that I think it's less than 48. I think again, President Joe Manchin and Vice President what's her fucking face from whatever, right? What'd you say?
Cinema?
Yeah, Cinema. Yeah, Kristen Cinema. Thank you. Right, I've already forgotten her. and I was happy. That was like that blank space in my mind. That was happiness. And which way, right? The fact that I think those two are just the ones who can take the heat, right? Who don't mind being in the spotlight, saying no. But there are other conservative Democrats. If these things were actually had a chance to pass, they would definitely vote against them. Right? There's a whole list of them, like Chris Coons, right? He's an extremely conservative Democrat, maybe even more conservative than the other ones, right? And he's just going along to give along at this point. But if these things actually had a chance to pass, I think he would absolutely fight them against it. Like, was it John Tester? There's a whole list of these guys who are essentially blue dogs. So like I would I don't know, maybe closer to 40, but still your point is well taken. All right, I'm done. Anyone else want to jump in?
Hey, Paradigm. Go ahead. Whoever was gonna go.
Yeah. So I came in here to be the devil because you guys were asking about what conservatives want.
Oh, please tell us. Yeah.
And I think that one of the things that Debate Board may have been taking issue with when you were framing the abortion debate is that you're saying that it's an attack on a woman's body, on her bodily autonomy, right? But that's not the reason the objection comes from. That's not the way that the conservative frames it, right? You have to look at it as we're basically offering fetuses, which we don't know, what sort of consideration we could give them. We're basically treating them like animals, right? We're basically saying, hey, this is an inconvenient thing, right? And it's much more convenient for you to just get rid of it.
It's not more inconvenient though. It's not more inconvenient.
No,
to get rid of it.
that's how people view it, right? People view it as an
inconvenience. It's more inconvenient to have an unwanted child in the world. But I'm gonna my bad for cutting you off. That's just I had.
Yeah. So baseline. If your point is that. And the crying is about like, I framed it in a way that Republicans don't like. They don't like the fact they're actually attacking women's reproductive health, right? And they want to say they're defending unborn life. Okay, well, I can say it any way you want, you snowflakes, if you're melting over that shit, right? Whatever, right? But we're talking about the same thing, correct? Right? We're talking about limiting reproductive services, correct?
But you're framing that.
But they're framing. I don't care about the framing. I don't care about the framing.
It's
but like we're talking about the same policy.
But if you're trying to have a conversation with them, then the framing is important.
All I'm asking is what they want. That's who cares, right? If they're going to be crying, hold on, please. If they're going to be crying about a progressive, a leftist, like not framing their policies in the right manner, right? And the most charitable manner. Well, then, fuck you. Again, this is very conservative snowflake nonsense, right? Like, we're talking about the same policy. You know what we're talking about, right? Like, that's it. Like, obviously, I see it differently. I don't see it as defending the fetus. I get that you might see it that way. I get that someone else might see it that way. But we're talking about the same fucking thing. So, like, what's the crying about? Any which way. So let's get past that. And do you have anything else, like in terms of like policy agenda, a forward-looking policy agenda that conservatives are looking for? Please go ahead.
Yeah. One of the huge issues that people hit on most recently is the democratic treatment of the whole COVID pandemic. And this goes beyond just like pushing vaccines, like vaccine mandates, even masks. This goes on to like talk about like misinformation, about like like what they perceive as censorship on these like public social media platforms, the sort of control of the public dialogue about these controversial issues. And I think that a lot of conservatives recently have been pushing to try to I forget what the title is or like the law, but I think they want to make these like the town square, right? That's something that has been going on a lot lately. Getting rid of masks in schools is a huge thing, trying to lessen restrictions, getting rid of mandates. People feel like, to use your own terminology, they feel like their own bodily autonomy is under attack, right? Like they feel like those vaccines, you see this with the truckers in Canada. And so it's a large issue with a lot of dimensions, and I think that conservatives are just looking for pushback on a lot of those. A lot of those things.
Can I help you for a second? Can I help you?
Go for
it. Is it Based Night? So
that's correct, sir.
Yeah. So a lot of the ways that like you're saying, actually, like in your regards of every topic that you've talked about, framing is important, and that's how they're able to entice people to that type of ideology because of those simple things. Is they take the same argument that the left is going to use and frame it in a way that is going to be charitable to the people on the right or people that are right leaning. Is that kind of a fair argument or not fair, like
Yeah,
point,
yeah.
point of
think
consensus?
one of
You know what I
the
mean?
I think one of the
Because
issues with the radicalization of like to the far left and the far right is that people are staking out these like ideological positions, and we're not able to have conversations with each other because each side is framing it in such like a hostile and uncompromising manner.
okay,
Right?
okay. So that's so right there. That's right propaganda. Okay, like that
Hold
right
on, no,
there is
wait,
where.
wait, no, 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 it's not. No, it's
No,
not.
no,
He has a
no,
point
no,
here.
no, no, no.
If you are sitting there calling conservatives stupid, saying conservatives want to kill people, then you're part of the alt-right pipeline. Because where do you think those people are going to go?
Oh
Where are you
boy.
people who have those?
Oh
You're part of the
wait.
alt-right
Exactly.
pipeline. You
But
are
wait, but
driving
I
people
know.
away from
Oh.
your
Okay,
positions.
okay.
You are. You
Okay.
could sigh
So
about
sad.
this,
No, he's
but
right.
this is
No,
true. This
no, no,
No,
happens.
he's not
We've
right.
seen it.
No, Wick is correct because Wick is correct on a macro, on a micro, okay? Like on a micro
I
scale,
don't
he is
think so.
correct.
No,
No,
he's not.
I can
I
explain that
think he was
position.
right
I
from
know
the
it.
beginning, but keep going.
No, I can explain this in the micro, okay? In the macro, these conversations do take place, and that these but I'm talking about on a small social group scale, okay? So if I'm to be somebody that is, a centrist naturally, just naturally be a centrist. I've never paid attention to politics. I'm speaking from like anecdotal experience. Somebody that I smoked weed all of high school. I didn't pay attention in politics. I had an opportunity to be able to get into the political spectrum. I didn't really do that. So my beliefs were more centrist because I wasn't exposed to any type of political ideology. I just saw what was morally right or wrong, correct? Like that's how, not correct, but that's how I saw things, okay? And so what he's saying is when things that are framed in a manner that there's this left-wing agenda to be able to have the government take control of your day-to-day life and be able to have more and more restrictions on your freedoms, i.e. freedoms, okay? And regarding free speech, regarding just I'm going to go over the whole gambit: free speech, abortion, gun control, all of those things, okay? Now the abortion thing's a little bit of a flaky thing because they're asking for more government in that regard, in the pro-life kind of debate. It's you feel you know what I'm saying.
I don't think
Yeah.
it's a consideration of government control. I think it's a
Just wait.
consideration
Let me finish
how
this
we
tangent real
morally
quick.
approach these questions. But yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
but let me finish the tangent real quick. So when somebody is looking at these things, such as free speech and such as gun rights and all of these things, when they see the extreme leftists, the people that are whatever in the universities or whatever that are echoing these sentiments on public platforms and are being platformed to say so, the people that naturally are not aware of the actual consequences of unregulated manners of systems in those regards, whether that's free speech, whether that's fucking gun rights, whatever all that stuff is. Everything has regulation on it, and everything should have regulation on it. But when they see that there's agendas to increase that regulation, they automatically push back. And so when he says that's a pipeline to the alt-right is a group of people that want to see the state fail, as Paradigm was saying, because they want to have they want to have reaction.
All right.
No, the alt-right is they want to have. Wait, so you're telling me that reactionary forces that go against government are not alt-right?
No. You're expanding what the alt-right is. Alt-right, let's not forget, right? Is the it's a euphemism for like white nationalism, right? Like that's what the alt-right is.
But
That's
not just white national, it's ethno-nationalism because it goes in different.
Yeah, it's the same thing, but they don't want the state to fail. They're going to want the state to use against minorities. They don't want the state to fail.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
But the state is not allowed to do so in the social manner, so they want to be able to take over the state and be able to run that in their own regards. So yes, they want to become the state, but that's in an authoritarian type of like agenda.
So they don't want. Okay,
no, it's not.
Sure.
It's not.
I just want to let
some.
Sure. I just want to let some. Lex want to say something. Debate will also stop by.
Welcome.
Fair enough. So we want to hear from them. But first, Ashley, please.
I was just gonna say that the downfall of the state brings about the climate, or like if the state's in a declining state, then that like very much brings about the climate that the alt-right could actually do what they want to do. So I wanted to specify, I do think Dre's talking about that, which is
Yeah.
they want to bring about the state like having a downfall so that they can capitalize off that.
That's how Hitler rose to
Because
power.
yeah,
Like-
exactly. Like if the state's kind of in like a
You mean
really bad-
illegitimate? You mean making it illegitimate? I think that's what you're
Yes.
looking for.
Yes.
kind
Okay.
of. If it's in a bad if the state is in a bad state,
It'd be
Yeah.
illegitimacy.
Yes.
That's what
Yeah.
that
Yes.
is. Okay, fair enough.
That was the echo. That was what I was trying to get across. And I'm
Yeah.
fucking sick that I'm agreeing with Wick. But Wick, oh, you motherfucker, you were right this time, man. Good job.
So
Good job.
Okay, so I want to let in debate board. Before we do that, hey guys, if you're liking this channel, liking what we're doing here, then be so kind, sub to the channel, give bits or give subs, support this community. Is how we keep this channel up and running, right? So if you like this content, support this content. If you have Amazon Prime Gaming, use that here. That won't be sub per month on this community. Okay, debate board, go ahead, please. We'd love to hear from you.
Well, no, I mean, you guys seem to move on to what I was, to use your word, complaining in chat about your bullshit rhetoric. You know, Wick in particular, you know, out here trying to pretend that the couple of family members he knows who self-identify as conservatives gives him a lens into tens of millions of people
do you
who are
realize-
political conservatives.
Wait,
again,
Don't
this is
interrupt,
a
Wick. I just
mis-
popped
let
on,
him
so
finish,
you
let him
can
finish.
settle down and be quiet now.
Let him finish, please. Debate board, go ahead.
So, you know, that Wick sits here and uses these 2 or 3 people in his family as a lens into instructing us on what the Republican base, you know, wants, or in this case doesn't want, because apparently, according to Wick, the Republican base doesn't want any governmental activity whatsoever. It's just pure fantastical bullshit. So Wick, you've
Had I
been
said
called
that,
out.
it
It's
would be
easily
so.
demonstrated.
But
Point
debate board,
gone.
you aren't.
The point's
you aren't,
gone.
You did not listen. It was clear you did not listen.
No, I didn't
You
listen
turned
to you. I
off
quoted
when
you
I
in
started
chat.
talking, and you didn't listen because that's not what I said at all. I said there's a portion of the
I
Republican
quoted
base,
you in chat.
and this is true. I'll give you a quote from Ronald Reagan. It's not just by my family members here. This is a quote from Ronald Reagan. The scariest words in the English language are "I'm from the government and I'm here to help."
you.
This has been
Yeah.
something that the Republican conservative base, a portion of it, not all of it, obviously, and stop aggrandizing my words and trying to be dishonest in your phrasing.
Using the words you used in the
No,
stream.
you are not, though. You are
I
leaving
did.
things out.
You
You are
know,
I don't know-
misrepresenting. You are
I don't
not.
know Wick. I don't know Wick that well, but I will tell you, like, in the middle of the discussion that we were just having between Dre and Wick, Wick said again, "I don't mean all." Like, he's been repeating,
I
"I
keep
don't
saying
mean
this.
all." Like, I
No,
don't
see
know
what
where
Wick
you-
did.
But you keep not listening because
Majority
you
of the
have an
Republican
agenda.
base.
You
No,
have an agenda.
actually,
You are not being
pull
honest.
back
You
further.
are not being an honest
Someone
actor.
is
You
back
are
on
not
mad at him
listening,
for saying
and you are
small.
trying to
Okay, hold on,
misrepresent.
can we cut through this bullshit?
okay,
Can we cut
okay.
through it?
Yeah, all right, so I just
Wick,
want
I'm
to...
using your words.
Mhm.
Okay, so
But
you
you're not.
initially said
Again, you are not.
a
You are
large
not
component of the
using all
Republican
my
base
words.
wants
You are
X.
using small.
So hold on, he
portions
said
of
large
it.
portion. He said large portion just now, that which is not all everyone, right? Okay, so
Yeah,
continue
no
on.
one's saying everyone.
You
Can
did.
we
You just
state-
said
no,
that.
hold on.
I
You
said that.
Bro,
Oh my
This
God.
is a very
This is
easy
happening in
issue
real
This
This
time.
is so
Relax.
fucking unproductive.
Wick,
Let
Oh
him
my
talk.
god, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh my god. So like, let's
Wick.
get past that point. All right. So yeah.
Wick,
So
I
a certain amount.
criticized you
Go
in
ahead.
chat for attempting to suggest that a large component of Republicans don't want government to do anything. That is horse shit. You then, literally
Okay.
3 minutes later, attempted to retract that by saying, well, only a small portion of the Republican base doesn't want government to do something. And now you're trying to misrepresent Reagan's words about, I'm here from the government, I'm here to help, when Reagan's words were a criticism of the effectiveness, or in this case, the great ineffectiveness of the federal government to solve social ills and problems.
He's got a point.
Not an,
Listen,
his
listen,
words are not an indication that government shouldn't do nothing.
Yeah, this is
Very
we
good,
can
very
all I
reasonable,
believe
I
that
know.
we can all accept that there are libertarians in the
Responding?
conservative movement that do prioritize like private solutions over public solutions, right? That's kind of like what we're talking about here, but that isn't necessarily representative of a
the whole
majority of conservative and Republican parties. It's not the whole party.
Yeah, and I wasn't
Okay,
condemning Wick for suggesting
but
that
no
it was
one
the
said
whole
it was the
party
whole
or-
party.
or everyone. Yeah.
And again,
I didn't say he said
politicization-
that.
Oh my God, yes, you did. You came in here saying.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
He said
Please,
that you gave
please
the
let
book-
me respond
No, he
without
said
cutting me
you-
off.
Okay.
Go ahead.
May I? Okay. Thank you. So again, so when you say that, oh, well, a large portion of the base doesn't want this, Prove it. Where's your data? Where's your evidence here? I have seen this through, admittedly, circumstantial evidence, admittedly, talking to people on the ground. I get that. But to claim that I am lying or misrepresenting puts a really dishonest spin on what I'm saying. And yes, sometimes I say something and then I correct myself. What do you do, sir? What do you do? Do you just continue spouting off fucking nonsense to be consistent? No. When I say something wrong, and I've done this multiple times on multiple panels, when I say something wrong, I correct myself because I believe in being honest and I believe in being as accurate as I possibly can. Does that make sense?
So just a counter, like for a counter example of like what you're suggesting, right? You said like, is there a study? No, like all you have to do is look at Donald Trump, right? Like Donald Trump was not like a Reaganite. He was like very
Certainly.
pro-government,
Mhm.
even though he campaigned on like draining the swamp. A little paradoxical, but people ended up supporting like what Trump was doing. He like had one of the hugest like spending
Turnouts.
deficits of any
Voter
US
turnouts.
president. Yeah, he was like he did Operation Warp Speed. He signed like tons of executive orders. He was actually like kind of like big government, right? So I think that this trend of like Reaganism and like libertarianism within the Republican Party is kind of diminishing. You know,
Yes.
there
Fair.
it's a big tent party, and it's like there are a lot of different ideologies that kind of tie together to form the American right. So I don't think we should try to pin down or claim that a majority all support this like one position,
The
right?
same
The
positions
Democrats
you
have
want.
become the Democrats have become more the
No.
neoliberal party
No.
than
Wait.
the Republicans
No.
recently.
Wait.
I mean,
The
no,
same.
you see this with the
No.
Republicans being
But
more
wait.
protectionistic, like less
Wait.
Keynesian.
The same type of energy that you want to bring towards the right, you have to bring to the left. They are both doing the same things to be able to influence their base. So it's the same exact thing, just on the other spectrum. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not saying it isn't.
Just like you're saying, there's a bunch of umbrella of ideas that fall under to categorize the American right. There's the same group of people, or there's the same amount of umbrella ideas that form the left. It's just the agenda.
I never said it wasn't. I never said it
Yeah.
wasn't.
But you were going that direction, and I was trying to stop
So
that so that
let's-
you didn't come
No,
off
I
as that.
Let's
wasn't.
remember.
You
I
know.
wasn't.
Let's go back to the Trump thing because I think that's very important. Remember who Trump was running against. He was running against Hillary Clinton, who the right has hated for a long
world
time
has
since the
hated.
Clintons.
Fuck
Since the
Hillary
Clintons.
Clinton.
Okay, so when we talk about like, oh well, their support of the Trump must mean they support all his policies or his way of doing things. I do not think that's true. I do not think that necessarily follows because in a lot of cases, Republicans just vote Republican. They do not vote Democrat under any circumstances. And a lot of the Republicans were not happy with a lot of what Trump did, but they still voted for him because he was better than the alternative in their view.
Okay.
So again, we're making leaps of assumptions here that just I don't think you can.
Okay. Can we go back to the what? Fuck! I just had it. It was a really good point that you just had.
So, hon, and
Sorry.
while you wait to back there, I actually do want to ask Debate Board one thing. Debate Board, we're asking for that proactive view. And Knight gave his view of what conservatives are looking for. What do you think? What do you think, in your opinion, is the proactive policy agenda of conservatives now, broadly speaking? Obviously, very broadly speaking.
No, I don't think there is a broadly prescriptive policy platform for conservatives because conservatism itself is not a prescriptive doctrine, much like American liberalism. It is a political and philosophical approach.
It's in the name, bro.
Let him finish.
Thank you.
Let him finish. Let's give him some cordiality.
Okay, dude.
Sorry.
Clean your camera. All that spittle on there, you got to settle yourself down, okay, bro?
Damn.
Secondly, lay off the
It's a
drugs
broken.
because
It's a
addling your
broken
mind.
phone.
Okay.
It's a broken phone. So
Thirdly,
fuck off. Sorry, I'm poor because you're capitalism.
Thirdly, the morons among us who simply say, "Oh, conservatives just want to conserve," it's just an intellectually vacuous argument that is meaningless in its utter absence of thought or even reality or practicality. Okay, conservatism is a political philosophy that helps us understand how we ought to think about what government should be doing, what it ought to be doing, and how it should do it. Okay, we see
Sounds
this
like liberalism.
Yeah, but Debate Board, wouldn't you say that
that
would
is
mean that there are
classical liberalism.
prescriptions?
That is correct.
Wouldn't you say that there are prescriptions that stem from that, though? I think that's what Prime was asking.
Yeah.
No, there are not specific policy prescriptions. So, for example,
So the
let's take
GOP doesn't
abortion.
have any policy prescriptions?
Okay,
Just
now
let him
Wick,
go.
here you go. Now you're conflating the GOP
But that's what
with
we're talking about.
conservatism.
You
Sorry,
understand the
yeah.
topic, right?
I apologize if I stated incorrectly, right? What I meant to be is like a GOP, right? What does the GOP
We
want to
can
push?
look at
Because
the
we're talking about the
GOP
parties.
political
Okay.
platform, and then we know what that is. Yeah.
Okay.
Quite frankly, I'm not that familiar with it. 'Cause I
Elucidate
don't pay
for us,
attention to
then.
it.
Okay. So you're saying that conservatism in general doesn't have prescriptions. Okay. If
No,
that's what you're saying, I don't want to.
there can be policy proposals that flow from how conservatives view institutions like institutions of limited government, private property, private enterprise, these sorts of broad-based values and principles, right? And from that, you can then formulate various public policies. The
Hey, can I
Republican
ask you?
Party has very clear approaches to to how they prescribe a policy approach to American life.
Okay, can I ask you a question though? So when you were talking about public like or private property and all of those things, what is their aim in regards to those policies? Is it to conserve the integrity of those within the government structure?
No,
So
it's
that
to
the
preserve as much as possible individual freedom and liberty. That's why
okay,
private property
so
exists.
so to no, but so that's to conserve the amount of private property that is held within the bases of people that own it, right?
No,
Like that's the
no,
so then
no,
what?
it's
So then
not.
I'm trying to ask. No,
Conservatism is not a political
because I'm a very
ideology of conserving X, Y, or Z.
no,
That's
but
your
I'm
fundamental
asking.
misunderstanding here.
No, it's not a fundamental misunderstanding. I'm
It
genuinely
is.
asking you. No, I'm asking you to clarify it on me to where that I'm
I
not
just
asking
did.
that question. No, you didn't. You just told me that I'm wrong. You didn't tell me how I'm wrong.
So
Yeah,
I can approach this question.
Okay.
I
So
know the
Knight, go ahead, and then I want to hear from Ashley and Paradigm. If you want to. Okay, great. Go ahead, Knight, please.
Yeah, so the GOP has like released their 2020 resolution platform. And like regarding like homeownership, like private property, for the last 9 years, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have been in the conservatorship, and the current administration and Democrats have prevented like any effort to reform them. And they accuse the Democrats of like having corrupt business models that let shareholders and executives like reap huge profits while the taxpayers cover the losses. So like the Federal Housing Administration, which provides taxpayer-backed guarantees in the mortgage market,
Yeah, for
they
sure. I get
think
a
that they should know.
FHA loan.
Yeah, they think that they should no longer support high-income individuals, and the public should not be financially exposed by risks taken by FHA officials. So they want to end the government mandates that required Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and other federally insured banks to satisfy lending quotas to specific groups. So they're anti what is it called? They're anti
Regulation?
no. What's it called when you're letting you're giving preferential treatment to minorities? The word is escaping me.
Uh,
Equity.
no. Are you
Uh,
talking about affirmative action?
Yeah, affirmative action, affirmative action. Yeah, so they're anti-affirmative
Affirmative
action.
action.
They call it discrimination, and they are also they want to basically get rid of all of this and get more people, like more average working people, without any regard for their race, ethnicity,
Yeah.
whatever,
No,
owns.
I get the premise of that, but I'm asking like, so I want my question answered from either one of you two in an actual like intellectual way, and not tell me that like I'm drinking tea or that I'm doing like just genuinely answer my question on on regards to
Sure.
private property and all of those. Like I feel like there's a lot of dancing
Can you
around that
answer it?
question, and I
Can you ask it again?
okay,
Well,
I'm
it's not
saying
dancing around the question. It's a poorly framed question. The way you frame the question is that, oh, conservatives value or prioritize private property, right, as an
no, that's not what I'm
institution
asking.
in
That's not what I'm
democracy.
asking. That's
And
not
what
what
you
I'm
Just
asking.
framed
re-ask
it
the
as
question. Just
Can I
re-ask the
can I
question.
can I
conservatives
re-ask the question?
conservatives trying to conserve property in the hands of people who already own it.
No,
And
can
no,
I
that's not the case at all.
no, that's not what I'm asking. That's not what I'm
That's what
asking.
you did
Just
ask, though.
re-ask
No,
it.
no.
Okay. All right.
What I
Then
asked,
ask it, please. Yeah.
yes. What I'm asking is the idea of conservatism, the government's stance on private property. Like, is that what conservative? Like, where is like, fuck, I don't know how to ask it. It was asked really well before, and I don't know how it wasn't asked properly. But basically, I'm asking is conservatism to keep the laws for private property? Is it to conserve them?
I think that every single party in the United States of America, that at least like the Democratic and Republican ones, both support the continuance of private property. I don't think anybody in the Democratic or Republican Party
Okay.
that's worth a damn
Okay.
is going to criticize that.
Okay.
Okay.
That's what I was asking.
All right, so let's
So I
get
was
I would only go further in that conservatives prioritize private property as an extension of individual freedom and liberty, and that
Yeah,
we
the American
attempt to
dream.
maximize that liberty, right, by allowing private ownership of property.
Ashley, please.
Debate board, can I open up a quick small dialogue with
Please.
And
Are
and,
you-
and
are you
before you
right,
do that,
Lee?
debate boy, your volume is doing the thing when it goes up and down. If you could,
I'll do my best to try
It's
to
like you're
fix
putting
that.
the mic in your throat sometimes when you're trying to prove a point. Like when you say private property, you're like throating the mic.
okay. But thank you so much.
Every
All
time
right,
you say private property or private liberties, it's like you're throating the mic, like you're emphasizing that.
Yeah, can
Ashley.
you please get the mic out your mouth, please?
Oh,
I
Ashley.
just wanted to ask, are you right leaning and a supporter of the Republican Party?
Half-heartedly supporter of the Republican Party, more
Okay.
classical liberalism and conservatism than the GOP.
Okay. So I guess with the emphasis on private property and individual liberties, I'm obviously going to ask this question. Why do you think that the GOP tends to be so against trans people or in trans children?
I don't know that they're against the people or the individuals themselves. Look at this guy. Let him get triggered. Look at his mind. His
Yeah.
eyes are going to pop out of his head.
Yeah, when you're talking about
I'm sorry, bro. I'm
the
playing a
right-
video game. My bad.
when you're talking about the right being against trans people, right? Ultimately, that boils down to like three important issues to the conservative voter. The first one is what Jordan Peterson has argued against, the whole forced speech, using your pronouns. They feel like that is an abridgment on their free speech. The second one is trans athletes. They are fearful that they can potentially outperform, their cis counterparts after, transitioning. And then the third one would be children being offered like puberty blockers and like
Yeah, but why are they against that
promoting
last
and
one?
accepting and tolerating transition in like pre-adolescence.
So tolerating.
I'm trying to get from debate board though why that last one. That's the one that I'm really curious about because that's the one
Okay.
that's been under attack at least in Texas.
I'll let him speak
I'm
then.
Yeah.
As I was starting to say, I don't think Republicans and conservatives are against trans people as individuals. I think what they are against is the imposition on them to live the perceived reality or truth that trans people have adopted for themselves. A trans woman or a woman who now wants to believe that they are a man or perceives themselves as a man. I think Republicans and conservatives have a hard time having that foisted or imposed on them, either by a governmental entity or by a society at large, to compel them to live that truth that the other person is now living. On the hormone blockers, that third point that Base brought up, I don't think that I hate referring to it this way, that the science is as conclusive and solid as the trans activists want us to believe on the use of hormones and their effects on younger people, particularly children. And so consequently, they derive, I think, a reasonable opposition to not just articulating an argument for, but compelling parents who aren't ready for their children to transition, compelling parents to allow their 9-year-old, 15-year-old, or 18-year-old children to utilize hormone blockers or engage in any sort of medical treatment in that direction.
Okay, go ahead,
Yeah.
Ashley,
Yeah.
and we'll go to Paradigm, and then Wick, I see your hand up. Go ahead, Ashley.
So I just wanted to say I'm not sure that you would fully defend that position. So I don't want to attack.
Well, you asked me about what other people.
Oh yeah, no, you were just
Republicans
explaining.
thought.
So I'm not going to attack
okay.
it because I assume that you don't fully hold that, right? I'm more so asking, like, would you fully
General.
stand with that on your side? Like, obviously, you were explaining like the general ideas. So I'm just curious, would you agree with that?
I think I would agree with with the hormone blockers staying, the various medical treatments, and more importantly, with activists and left-wing ideologues who are attempting to use government to compel parents to do things in their interactions with their children in this particular space. As for, me, for example, calling you they or them or he and him or she and her, hey, I'm a courteous person. If this is your life and I meet you in real life and you want me to interact with you in that way, I'm probably going to do it because, quite frankly, I'm indifferent to it otherwise.
Anything
Can
else,
I help
Ashley?
you out, Ashley?
No,
Can I say
no.
something?
Oh, no, wait. I got a line. Ashley, are you done?
Can I just ask one question?
Please go ahead.
Have you read any of the data on this yourself?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
I mean, I can't say that I've done an exhaustive
Which studies have you read
on
it?
Just oh gosh, I can't pick them off the top of my head. It's not like I catalog these things.
I have them all.
I'm sure you have many that affirm the position you want to hold.
No, I have a lot that
affirm the approach you want to take.
So there's one study that I know you're pointing to, because I know which study you're pointing to, right? I know the exact one. I'm pretty sure, so I can go try and dig it up.
Suppose so. That's fine.
Because it's the one that everyone points to, right? And it's the one about doubts. I forget which article it is. I could dig it up for you. But if I got you a study, would you remember the one that you read and generally what it said and how it was laid out?
Probably not. This is stuff that, to be honest with you, I'm not really fully engaged in.
That's fine.
Like I said, I haven't done any kind of exhaustive search. Yeah,
no, I'm 90% sure that I know the study that you're citing, and that one cites other data that I gotta say, if you just read the methodology of that data that they're citing, I think you would fully agree with me that it is not great. They're just asking parents, like, their take on their children, which is like, that can be helpful for understanding a parent's perspective, but when you're trying to understand the child, that's kind of useless. Now, if you're talking about the ones that saying that puberty blockers hurt in the long term, I think the sample size for that was like 5 people in the study that I think you're talking about?
Again, there's a huge supposition here that you're referring to studies that I may or may not have read. I think it is fair and reasonable here to conclude between the two of us that it is not 100% ironclad that there are no adverse effects for the use of hormone blockers.
I can tell you the adverse effects because I know them off the top of my head.
We don't have to have this discussion right now. I am proposing to you a reasonable basis for disagreement here that there is simply no ironclad scientific determination in the space. That's why there is so much research still being engaged in. That's why there is
it's not bad to keep doing research to make sure that we're right. I mean, there's research on climate change, right? But climate change is pretty universally accepted. But we still research.
Well, everyone believes that the climate is changing. The policy prescriptions that flow from that is where the majority of the disagreement is.
You can't make logical arguments with somebody that doesn't.
But my entire point is that. But what I'm trying to say regarding
Dre missed that whole point. Oof.
What I was going to say is the studies regarding this are pretty, it's pretty clear that the main risk is osteoporosis in extreme cases, right? So there is side effects, I do agree with you. But it doesn't seem like there's any side effects that are unexpected beyond that. Bone mineral density seems to go back to normal levels after about 10 years, which is a long time, but
this is all great. I'm not here to engage in a discussion with you on hormone blockers. You asked for what I thought my perception was on Republicans in this particular point, and then you asked me if I believed or agreed with it, and I gave you what my opinion is.
I'm responding to you trying to offer me a middle ground, and I'm saying that I disagree with that middle ground fundamentally.
Fair enough. Then we don't have to explore that middle ground any further.
I'm not going to go into the details if you really don't care, but I'm just offering you why I would fundamentally disagree with the middle ground.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Fundamentally disagree, and I can appreciate that.
Let's go to sorry, what was your name again? Starts with a P. Paradigm. I apologize. Paradigm. So
it's all
Paradigm.
Good. This is the first time we've met.
And I'll forget it again in the future, but it won't be out of offense. So Paradigm, Wick, and then Dre.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to make this as fast as possible because I am not, and I know where this is gonna go. I'm not one of these debate bro. I'll sit here and I'm just gonna say what I'm gonna say. I don't like bigotry. I don't like transphobia, especially, and I just feel like I got a big waft of that in my face, and it doesn't make me feel good. So I want to go smoke weed. So in order to do that, I got to get all my aggression out because y'all not gonna blow my fucking high. First of all, Dre, I understand, bro. My phone just started coming apart today. Like I fuck with that. I got you on that. Wick, I don't know who you are exactly, but I like the way you approach certain things. I'm fucking with the energy, you know. I don't know your positions or whatever, but you don't sound like an idiot, and that's good. That is good enough for me. The other
High
two
praise.
people just turned. The other two people just turned on their cameras. Y'all haven't spoke yet, so I don't know. I guess I'll watch the rest of it when I log off. Let me address a few things real quick. First of all, the idea of right and left in this country, and I'm not going to go through the etymology of it because nobody's got the fucking time for that. Nobody's interested in that shit. When we try to have these conversations about like what the right wants, it always devolves into this idea of individual liberty. My problem with that is that it seems like if you want individual liberty, you would want to scale back the things that you would take away from people. And for some reason, it seems like when I, a person who ran for office, looked at every candidate's sheet for their positions and policies for debate night, and I ran for mayor of New York City, all of them, every single one of them, not one of the things that they wanted to legislate on the Republican side had anything to do, anything at all, with giving anyone anything. And I can't give you, obviously, the names. You could just look up the names of the people who ran and see their policies. But, like, I could tell you what they were supposed to say and what they didn't say. Like, my problem is that you want to have this middle ground, like you just tried to have with Ashley. You want to have this middle ground, but you sit on I agree to disagree, but you still hold that power. How much power do you wish to hold before, like, I have to tell you, yo, all the things that you want support a system known as capitalism. Capitalism literally locks people out of participating within it because you need capital in order to participate in capitalism. You run around in these circles over and over and over again. And you know what that makes me sound like? You know what that makes you sound like? And I hate this, and I'm going to hopefully this sticks and lands because I'm not talking to you as, like, the paradigm shift, the stream. I'm talking to you as Marquise, the dude right here. You sound like the people who used to argue that black people shouldn't be fucking free. Like,
Yo,
I'm
he
sorry.
really does, bro. Like that.
Like, you giving that, it's
really
giving
are.
True shit, bro.
He's saying the activists and shit, like the activists are wrong. Like the activists are wrong. Like what the fuck? Like was MLK wrong?
And so it's gonna sound like people are gonna dogpile on you. So I'm gonna actually go off that point to finish because I don't want to keep you guys here forever and listen to me talking. But to what he just said, you just told a trans person. Am I correct in that in that assertion? Okay, just want to make sure because you know, fair enough. You just told somebody, oh, the activists, you know, have this data, and I'm sure it affirms your point of view. But it's like you were ready to say that you saw data that affirms your point of view.
Yeah,
So
like
if
the same argument could be
Said
used against
neither,
them.
not
Right.
even remotely close paradigm.
So hold on, wait, because I'm good at this. So if I have two sets
No,
of
you're
data
not.
that affirm, that's not what my stream says, and that's not what my growing viewership says. You see,
It's a little
punitive.
echo chamber.
See, it's an echo. See, he don't know. He don't know. It's okay. He don't
You're
know
right.
who I
Never
am.
heard of you.
It's
Don't know.
okay. Cool. That's fine. Yeah, it gets personal. It always gets personal with y'all because you realize what I'm about to say. If
You
I
just
have
call
two
me a
sets of
transphobe and
data,
a racist. Shut the fuck up,
because
dude.
that's the way you
Seriously.
sound. Did I use the word racist?
Yeah, you just did a moment ago.
No,
like,
you
oh,
didn't.
like,
No,
like
I
black
didn't.
people shouldn't
he
do this or
didn't.
that.
No, he
You
didn't.
just did.
No, I didn't.
No, he
You
didn't.
don't
sound
listen,
like black
debate
people
boy.
should
You don't
participate.
listen.
You
See,
said
this is
it,
the problem
Adam.
with this is the problem. Like you come in here, you just didn't listen, and you just didn't pay attention
I
at
heard
all.
the words
He
he
didn't say.
said.
No, he didn't. He said you sound like. If
I sound
sound.
like
Oh Lord, I
Like
swear
this
to
shit
God.
just
such
struck a
a
nerve in me, bro.
vacuous response.
I,
You
Oh
sound
my
like a
God.
racist, but I'm not calling you a racist.
yeah, I don't
No,
know.
Come on.
I'm actually
Crime's
gonna.
not even biased.
I'm actually gonna like back debate board on this one a little bit, right? Because I see this from
come
the
on
other
now.
side too. Sometimes, right? You're saying
Come on.
you're proposing. Oh, this sounds like this, right? But it's not, right? Like when you say that, like you're clearly making a statement about his character, right? Like I don't think it's unfair for him to do that.
Prime. Watch. Now we could play the. I could agree with that. But I don't do that. I'm not saying that you are directly, that your epitaph of your character is you're a racist motherfucker who go around. Like, the argument that you're making in your good faith sense could be tied to the exact same argument that we've heard about everybody. Like, Japanese internment camps, same argument. Chinese internment camps, same argument. Like, I'm not saying that you are pushing that epitaph out through what you're saying. But somebody who's listening to that would only hear that. And the problem is, and I'm going to go back to what I was going to finish saying, if I have two sets of data in front of me, and one tells me that this thing that could help trans people is good, and one thing tells me that this thing that could help trans people is bad, and the overwhelming consensus from the group that is using it or the group that is feeling it is this is a good thing, I'm just gonna go with the good thing. I'm not gonna have an equal debate. This is not an equal platform, because what you want is to take it away from them while they want to use it in peace. Where's the middle ground between and this is my final statement. What is the middle ground between the oppressor and the oppressed? When does that conversation become equal? The arguments that you have been saying thus far today all sound like you want to suppress the idea of someone else by also saying in the same breath, we believe in individual liberty. Then why are we talking about lifting restrictions? Then why are we talking about getting, like Prime said earlier, we leftists want, Medicare and this and that, but it's lost within their own thing. That's our problem. But y'all don't want it at all. And that means that it's either we get everything or we get nothing. The middle ground is what? I give up some things, but you don't want anything. You just want to take shit away. I'm confused as to what your actual positions are regarding people and your platform in general, because it sounds like you're living in a contradiction. And I don't understand, Half Baked just came on here. Yeah, cool dude. Like, that's somebody who has the view of both sides of it. You not giving me that feeling, and it's fucking up my vibe. And I'm gonna go roll up now. Thank you for having me on. I would love to do this again sometime. Thank you for having an open waiting room. I've been dying to get on one of these. I'm sorry I had to be this one.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Hey, I'm gonna follow you, Paradigm.
Appreciate that. Same. I want to talk. Yeah, we'll talk after. I'm gonna add you.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. Have a good one, buddy. All right.
Same to you.
Okay. So, it was debate board. If you wanted to respond to that, or base night, if you wanted to, either way, respond.
Well, it's just sort of funny how we end up with caricatures, and that's what we often end up with on these panels. Is, well, it sounds like you guys are living in this contradiction. I don't understand what your position is on a particular thing. And what was funny about that is nowhere in there did he actually ask me or Based or anybody else for a specific position on a specific thing. The question earlier was, well, what do you think this platform is, right? This wide-ranging, generalized platform. But now he wants to say, well, you didn't answer this question about very specific policy prescriptions. And it's like, well, wait, dude, you didn't even present the question. So obviously you can't answer it. And perhaps
But
if you
Ashley
did
present the question,
answer it.
though.
You asked the question. I'm talking about the guy that just left.
No, I'm saying Ashley asked the question, though, and you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said actually.
No. I said Ashley.
She asked the question, and I answered her question. Yeah.
But you didn't answer. You just said that you agree to disagree. So it's like.
Oh, I
that's what you're
answered.
saying.
We disagree.
Okay.
We hit a wall. Yeah.
Okay.
And that happens in life, and we have to be adults and deal with that.
Yeah.
Well, we hit a wall because you are no longer willing to engage in it when it's something that doesn't affect your life at all, when it drastically affects my life.
I wasn't going to drag this panel down this road on a very narrow conversation.
That's fine. I'm just saying that's what I think he was bringing up, is that it directly affects me. It doesn't affect you.
We can guess at that.
And we can agree to disagree.
Remember, he was talking about individual freedoms and how conservatives always devolve into a conversation about individual freedoms. So,
okay. I get what you're saying.
So me hitting a wall with you on that particular question doesn't really address what he was saying.
I get what you're saying. He's generalizing your position on every view in that regard, and that's how you feel.
So we got a few other people waiting. So sure, let's go to Wick. Go ahead.
Yeah. So this went down a road I did not expect. I do not feel myself educated enough to speak on trans issues. I just don't. So I'm not going to speak on trans issues, and I want to talk about what we were talking about earlier. If the rest of the panel wants to go down the trans issues route,
I'd rather let's go to a general thing.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry if I dragged it down there.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's totally okay. It's just I'm not educated on it, so I can't speak to it.
Yeah. No.
But I do want to really push back. You keep saying we're mischaracterizing you. You keep saying that
I said you did, Wick.
Okay.
Very specific statement.
You keep saying I am misrepresenting conservatism because I assume the implication is that I do not understand conservatism. But when I say things like conservatives A lot of conservatives, not all conservatives, but a lot of conservatives believe in limited government and don't want the government to do anything. I can back that up with quotes and data. And let's read some of them. And I would like to be uninterrupted while I read some stuff just very quickly, and then I'll go. But let's get to it. So, the first quote I'm going to make is from Grover Norquist. He says, I don't want to abolish government. I simply want to reduce it to the size where I can drag it into the bathroom and drown it in the bathtub. So that's one. Okay, we got some more here. Oh, William F. Buckley Jr., not a conservative, maybe? No, he's a fucking conservative. He says, among our convictions, it is the job of centralized government in peacetime to protect citizens' lives, liberty, and property. All other activities of government tend to diminish freedom and hamper progress. So these
Sounds
guys
like
are
limited
for
government.
very limited government. And so it is not incorrect to say in many cases that the thing that conservatives want is the government to do nothing, because that is a true statement, and that is not misrepresenting your position, sir. There's plenty of quotes, there's plenty of evidence, there's plenty of data, and this isn't just me bringing in from my one or two lens. This is actual.
But
Do
we
you not
went
understand?
through
Have you
this.
not researched or done
We've
any
already gone
research
through
into the
this
position
point,
you
though.
claim to hold? Because this
Hey,
isn't the
Wick.
words of liberals. This isn't the
This is
words
funny.
of Democrats or progressives. These are the words of conservatives. These are the words of dyed in the wool. These people support their positions, and I am using their words, their arguments, because I understand them, and you do not seem to. Thank you,
Take a breath,
and
Wick.
good night.
So here we go.
But
So
we
here's
we
what's
had
funny.
that
What you just
conversation
did,
earlier.
what
Oh.
Wick
I want to
just
hear.
did
I want to hear.
was
I want to hear it, please. Please
what
go
Wick
on.
just did is
I
he
want to
went.
hear.
He
I want
went.
to hear Debate Boy. You respond to that. Go ahead.
Yeah. So it's funny. We need to recognize what Wick did here, because this happens so often on these types of panels and even in chat. Wick started out saying Republicans, conservatives don't want government to do anything. And then what did he do? He cited a couple of quotes, right, which talks about limited government, meaning there is a role for government. There is a want, a desire, a need for the government to work in our lives. And then he went right back to, see, they're all saying no government. They don't want the government to do anything. This, I don't know if it's just intellectual dishonesty or if it's just intentional confusion on his part. But we all need to recognize just what he did and have him own that.
I actually agree with you as much as I hate that.
Yeah, he's right. No, he has a good point. So
I mean, it's not hard to recognize that conservatives and Republicans, generally speaking, want those institutions that protect private property, for example, protect due process under the law, that provide for the public safety, that provide for national defense, right? These are all. This is also, I mean, easily recognizable by conservatives and Republicans, that when someone like Wick expresses confusion over what they might stand in, it confuses us. It confuses people like me. Like, how can you be confused by that, by someone who says they're familiar with this stuff, right? But then takes this approach, right? Uses this kind of tactic. Right?
Yeah,
And then to top it off with says,
conservative.
don't you know what you stand for? Don't you know what it means to be a conservative, something you espouse to believe in? It's like, come on, the duplicity is just so disingenuous.
Okay, can I counter that? Am I
Go ahead.
okay? So I believe that, like, for our system to work the way that it does, and for it to become better, and for things to happen, you need a balance of, like, if we're gonna cite people that are that are public figures, we could cite Jordan Peterson, all right? The Dragon of Chaos, or the woman of order, or whatever the thing of order is. I think there needs to be a healthy balance in that, for our government structure to, as it is right now, for it to thrive and for it to happen. I think the consensus that happens, or the tactics that do take place, like you're saying, in these panels, or just in public discourse in these topics, is to either create a straw man, or to either generalize somebody's position on things. But understand that when you are somebody that identifies with a political party, you are going to be boiled down to the general ideas of that political party, because you are supporting those. So just like and that's the choice in which wing you want to fly on, okay, in regards of left or right. So understand that when you support the progression or the empowerment of one side, you are basically empowering all encompassing of that side. And for me, my humanity has led me to be more on the left leaning side of things, but not in an American way left leaning. I mean in a general politics around the world left leaning, meaning that there is going to be more like personal liberties, because once you have like, you do need to regulate certain things so that people's liberty isn't encroached upon by other people, not just the government. Okay, that's the purpose of those of regulations. We regulate people, but we don't have people to regulate the government, and that's where that's where this
Well,
democracy
wait,
is kind
we live in a democracy. We do
but if
regulate our government through elections, right?
but understand that those elections are heavily lobbied for, and those ideas and those positions that you're holding are actually the ideas and positions of people that are have a lot of money and that are able to influence your thoughts. And so it's
I
not.
think that I think that's completely disingenuous. You have primaries like Bernie Sanders was not like backed by any big money, right? Like he ran a
But
primary
he
that was
has big
funded
money
by like an
himself, though.
average of $12 donations, right? Like
I know, no, but he
people
has
can do
big
this.
money himself.
Big money
Like
is like
like
not like
even
this huge force that like dictates what laws are necessarily passed, right? Like
Name a poor person
we
that's been in office though for me, please.
okay. What
wasn't
do you
AOC
define?
hold on, wasn't AOC a bartender before she ran for
Yeah.
Congress?
Yeah, but she ran as a socialist, so that's the only way
She's-
that it would
No,
work.
What?
she's not a socialist. She's a Democratic socialist. There's a bunch of a difference for that.
She ran as a progressive, but she ran within the Democratic Party, right? She ran as a
Okay,
Democrat.
But her platform is socialism.
No,
No,
it's not.
Policy platform.
Sorry,
No,
Not-
she
that's not-
she wants capitalism to still exist. She just wants it to be heavily regulated.
I don't know. Well, like it.
But
that-
either way, this is
what I don't.
what I'm saying.
Go ahead.
This got completely derailed. Like what I was saying got completely derailed. All I'm saying is that for these conversations to take place, we do need to be able to not generalize the entire things, but understand that the frustration that each side shows comes from a place that when you support one side, you support everything that encompasses that side. Is that
That's
not
how it works?
how is that not how it works?
Because you just first thing you did was like, yeah, AOC is a socialist, which is
No, it's not the
true.
first thing I did though. That after it got derailed.
Okay, all right. Focus on
Completely
whatever.
throw all that shit out. My bad.
Okay.
I like that's
Okay,
fine.
okay,
Like,
okay.
throw all that out. That wasn't the first thing I said. I'm trying to get to a place where we can have open conversations without people leaving because they're frustrated in a public discourse such as this open panel, so that people don't check out mentally in a conversation, and so that actual understanding comes of our
Okay.
discourse.
All right. Come on. Just sure. So what's the actual
But
point
you
you're
can
driving
move off
towards?
of me. That's fine.
What's the point you're driving towards?
What I was saying is I was just counteracting why, like, the WIC generalizations and justifying it, just like your guys' side does for liberals, as the liberal side does to Democrat or to Republicans. And that was my entire point that I was driving, and hopefully that is productive in this conversation.
I think Dre might be trying to say that, like, and I don't want to speak for you, but like I think you might be getting at the idea that, like, when you don't know anything about a person or their views, and you hear that, they're a conservative or they're a Republican or they support Trump or they support, whatever political party, it's easy to make these generalizations because, we've encountered that a lot in our life, right? Or we've seen these sort of like ideas being propagated by individuals who subscribe to those ideologies. It's a generalization that is only useful insofar as you don't know anything about the person, but whenever you actually get into the particular person and what they actually believe about the issue, those generalizations start to melt away, I think. Or sometimes they can be reinforced or be reaffirmed, right?
Yes.
So it really depends.
Yep.
Okay. Does Knight or Debate Board, do you want to respond to any of that?
I don't think it's unfair that when someone says they're a Republican that you or Democrat that you start ascribing even certain policy positions, right? That's fine. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. I think what happens is that when you get someone like Wick who will say, "Look,
I'm
large
here.
segment
Don't worry,
of
I'm ready.
a large
Let's go.
component
Let's
of
point out exactly why you're
Republicans
lying. exactly why you're lying. I'm here to do that.
That a large segment of Republicans just don't want the government to do anything, right? It's just a bad caricature of
This is what they say.
So
I'm not using my
unproductive at
words.
this.
I'm
Well,
not using
trying
my
to-
words. I'm
and
using
then-
their words. This is what
Debate, I'm just trying to
they
point you in
Okay,
the
all right,
direction of
debate board, finish
productivity,
your point, and then
Prime.
you can respond.
And then to double down and say, well, here, I'm going to cite a bunch of people who want the government to do something as examples
God.
to prove that Republicans don't want the government to do anything is silly. I don't
Oh my
understand the point, but I appreciate the other panelists' point that, look, when you don't know somebody and they say they're a Democrat, you can start to contextualize what they may think in political spaces, and that's fine. These caricatures, though, that Wick deals in are just silly. I mean,
Okay,
they're
Wick, you can
Let's talk
respond.
about yeah, sure. Let's talk about characters. So caricatures. I'm sorry. So again and again and again on this panel, and again and again and again in chat, you have said we say something, but you mischaracterize it completely. It's either you are not listening or you are being dishonest. Either one. Let me finish. And when I use these quotes, again, I never said that the Republican Party wants, or conservatives, let's say, wants the government to do nothing in all cases. I'm saying in many cases, because they believe in limited government, because they believe in starving the beast, as they say it, they want, in many cases, for the government to not get involved in these things, for the government not to do these things. They do not believe that the government should be involved in many facets of our lives. This is not an untrue statement. This, again, is basic conservative values and principles. It's not even necessarily bad. There are certain cases where I would agree with it. I am not saying this to say conservatives are bad and ugly and terrible people. I am saying this because it is true, because this is what conservatives believe, because this is what they have told me over and over again that they believe. And your mischaracterization of what I say to try to paint me as a liar when you are using words that I do not use, that you are leaving out context, when you are not properly engaging with my points, and laugh all you want, but this is just basic truth, and people can see it. The audience can see it. I can see it. Everyone who's listening can see this, unless they have an agenda for not doing it. And that's fine. I understand. But let's not pretend that you are being honest here, because you are quite clearly not. I have demonstrated that very clearly.
Rick, you have said that I'm being dishonest. Remember when I first came
I
in,
have
the
not
very
just said
first
it. I have shown it. Let's be clear.
Rick, the
I have
very
not just said it.
first
I have
thing
shown it.
I addressed, both in chat and when I came into the panel, were your very words. A large group of the Republican base does not want the government to do anything. Those were your words. That is what I
But
addressed
when you first came in,
chat.
that is not what
That
you
is what I
said.
addressed when I came into the panel.
No, you said,
There you
and I will
go.
quote, and we can go clip this. You can go clip
Please
this if you
do.
like. You said you believe that you said that the Republicans don't want to do anything. That the Republicans don't want the government to do anything.
Okay,
You did not say I said
okay.
the government wants a large
Yeah, I
portion.
think
I understand this
so-
is semantics. I understand
So
primaries might be boring, but it's important.
It's I mean, I just I do want to move on from this point. I mean,
Yeah, we're very
because
hung up on it.
yeah, like
I see
on
that the chat's talking
on-
about
on-
reproductive rights. Was that the
on-
topic
on-
of this panel? Okay,
no, State of the Union. No, State of the Union. We were talking about State of the State of the Union. Go ahead, Ashley, please.
I just wanted to quickly try and bridge the gap, if that's okay, because I think I know what happened. Or I think I
Okay,
saw it.
sure, but like
So,
I don't want to spend
yeah,
too
that's
long on this
fine.
like one disagreement. Like I just let's talk more than that. But go ahead, please, Ashley.
Okay. I was just gonna say quickly. Debate Bro and Wick. I think that what happened is Wick has said the extended statement of the government to do anything in many circumstances several times, but there has also been times where he has not said the statement all the way out, and he's just said the government not to do anything, right? So there's just been times when he said the full statement that I think he means, which is in many cases, but I think he's not always said that. And I think, Debate Bro, you're kind of latching on to the fact that he sometimes has not said that, to that he's changed his position, where I think it's just a misunderstanding. I think that's what it is. I think that Wick's position that he's saying right now is his honest position, and we should just work off that instead of making a massive deal, because I think that it's just been him not consistently ending the sentence and shorthanding it. I think that he assumes that we all know what he means by that, but I think that could cause some communication error.
Okay. Debate. You got muted for 10 minutes. But Thank you. Okay, so let's move on from
Can I
this.
ask you a question, Prime?
I
Sorry
I
for
li-
cutting you off.
Sure.
I'd
Go
like
ahead.
to say something after that.
Okay, ask me the question, and
Yeah.
then we'll
So
go to base.
hey, yeah, so my question, obviously, you're gonna have to probably like answer it after his thing because it's gonna take some time. But did you can you kind of summarize the State of the Union and where Biden is on it, because it's an hour thing and it was kind of it was just get back to, can you help us get back to the State of the Union, please, brother? That's why I clicked this panel to join and talk about the State of the Union. So I just wanted to do your point on it.
I mean, I don't know. It's a lot to
There was a
recap.
lot said.
Yeah, there's a lot said.
Yeah.
It's I thought that Biden did as good as a job as these things usually do. Nothing extraordinary, but these things are never extraordinary. He put a lot of policy positions out there. Some I agree with, some I feel like he should go farther. Yeah, I don't know. It was a little speech. It was a little speech. So I thought, I mean, it was all pretty solid. Then we talked about, and what got us here to the point where we're at, sort of, right, was the Republican response. And we were talking about the Republican response to the State of the Union, and how I felt that it was highly insufficient, and that they could have just done a really good job. Like, and what I was saying was that they put zero policy prescriptions out, and they were just responding to they were just making like cultural buzzwords, and didn't actually say they were going to do anything. And then that's why I asked conservatives like Knight and Debate Board to come on to give the proactive policy positions of their side.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that, Prime.
Yeah.
Thank
First
you.
of all, I'm not a conservative. But just to bring things back to the State of the Union, one thing I wanted to bring up that I thought was very interesting was Joe Biden announcing the formation of Arpa-H. It's a proposed agency that stands for Advanced Research Projects Agency for Health. He's kind of trying to develop like a DARPA for like health problems. And one thing that he spoke on in the State of the Union was trying to eradicate cancer. And this is something that I have quite a bit of knowledge in. I did some cancer research as an undergrad, and studied it extensively. And I wanted to know what the other panelists thought about this proposed like movement towards trying to eradicate certain diseases, because cancer is of course not one disease but hundreds. And I thought the Arpa-H was a interesting topic that didn't get a whole lot of attention on it.
Arpa-H. I'm sorry, I don't know what that is. Could you describe that again? Maybe I just missed it.
Yeah. It's so do you know what DARPA
Grant?
is?
It's a grant program, right?
Well, no, it's an agency like DARPA. So DARPA are like the people that like invented the internet. Like they come up with like all kinds of crazy inventions, things like that for national defense, for things like that. And what he's basically doing is he's trying to create another agency called ARPA-H, which stands for Advanced Research Projects Agency for Health. So they basically want to allocate. Um, Actually, another point of his speech was that China spends like 2% of their GDP on research, and that he wanted to move the U.S. more in that direction. So one of the dimensions he's analyzing that through is health. So trying to like eradicate cancer by funneling public funding to this new proposed agency. So I think it's really interesting.
That is interesting, bro.
I think also they should start funding NASA again, as now currently is heavily underfunded, and you could think of all the great things they have done throughout the many years before that, and if they continue doing the same thing, they will find more discoveries that will be very helpful for us in general, and as they've done many times in their development.
Yeah, so I'm curious what everyone else has to say about this. Funneling to that agency. Like I didn't, so the whole attack cancer, beat cancer type of thing. I mean I'm looking for, right? Like not against it. I think that, well, okay, multiple things. One, I think that there's like a cancer like not cottage industry, like this is a big industry, right? But there's like a beet cancer industry, where you'll see it on
Complex.
TV, right? Yeah, we'll crush cancer or walk for the cure or whatever, right? And look, I don't blame people for doing that, especially since it gives them like agency. Like I'm gonna do something about this disease that may have affected myself or my family members, right? So I get that, but just like the amount of investment you would need for something that's clearly huge and very difficult problem to solve is bigger than that. It needs to be on a governmental scale, right? And so with that in mind, then I like his proposal. Let's do that, right? It's but that's not something that would excite me, right? Not because I don't think it's important, because obviously, look, if we could cure cancer, oh yeah, right? Like let's do that. Let's be the nation that does that, right? But
Yeah.
I guess the possibility is like slim that will happen anytime soon, right? That's like such a nebulous thing, like cure cancer. Well, great, but
So what's interesting is after the success of the COVID vaccines, right now one of the ways that they're looking at trying to tackle a lot of different types of cancer is through mRNA vaccines. Cancer is a disease in which cells forget how to kill themselves when they reach an unhealthy state, and then they kind of conglomerate and form, bundles of these unhealthy cells that refuse to die, which forms tumors, right? So by the idea behind a cancer mRNA vaccine is by delivering a piece of genetic information that infects those cells with the instructions on how to kill themselves again.
and you'd
Okay,
have to
can I
design it. I would let you here to say, oh, you have to design it so that it only attacks cancer cells and not anything else. Okay, that's the challenge. All right, that sounds actually quite interesting. Please go ahead.
Another challenge. I'm sorry, I'll let him go.
No, go ahead, bro. What you're
Oh
saying is
yeah.
extremely interesting to me, so I like to hear that. I didn't
Yeah.
want to cut you
So
or Prime.
one of the troubles with even attacking one specific type of cancer is that cancer cells grow very rapidly because, as I said, they don't kill themselves, and they mutate a lot because they are missing important pieces of genetic information. So in even attacking one person's specific type of cancer, there are a lot of mutations. It's called heterogeneity, where they have a bunch of different genes that have gone wrong. So trying to attack even a specific tumor or worse, something that is metastasized, the concern is that you will not be able to deliver a single vaccine that will be able to attack all of those different genetic mutations. So there have been other proposals described. One of them, it's going to sound fanciful, like delivering things like through gold nanoparticles. And there's a lot of different approaches to it. A lot of things are promising, and we are still very in the dark about the challenges with facing cancer. But the research is, we are starting to get to a point where we're starting to understand the mechanisms by which all of these systems in the cell go wrong. So the mRNA is definitely an interesting new way of looking at it.
a new technology
Can
that we're
I?
able to.
Well, hold on, Dre first, and then Wick.
Yeah. So all right. This is gonna sound very taboo, and it might go a little bit sideways. So I'm gonna try and rail it in and keep it on track. So the ARPA program or even the DARPA program are some things that I have serious convictions about, just based off of previous experiences with our government and their unchecked ability to be able to like have any type of any accountability with it. Okay, so DARPA, like he said, is in charge of the NatSec program and making the internet that we know today. And we could see after 2001, the government's use of that technology against its own population in protection of its own population. And I'm a very cynical person, and so one thing that I do like to and this is a slippery slope, and this is like a very double-edged sword kind of argument, but I do like the private research, outfit or sector to be able to carry out these tasks. Obviously, with government subsidization, but I would prefer a program like that be rolled out by a private organization, and that's coming a lot from me, who's somebody that is kind of echoing socialism or a democratic socialism. But in that regard, and when it comes to public health or any type of program that could potentially be used against the population, I would prefer it to be used by be handled by a private organization. And that's my only kind of take on that. And I don't really like. I just that's the like one right leaning kind of ideology
So,
I have.
so this is hilarious. So you just want things to continue with Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg still doing what they do as being private business owners, still trading our data, secrets, and all of that. And even though they have directly messed up big time and have really screwed much of uh, society with how they're not able to really deal with things like QAnon and whatnot.
Yeah.
And
So
also, oh, sorry, my bad.
yeah, definitely. I definitely see your point of view, and that's why I made the disclaimer that it's a double-edged sword kind of philosophy to it. But I would much rather have a single entity that we can be able that obviously they wield a lot of power, and we need to find a way to check that power. But I would
Yeah,
prefer.
that's called the government.
Yeah, but they don't check that power because they
Yeah,
use that
they
use that
do.
money.
They
They
have
do.
many
May I
different
interject?
agencies.
May I interject really quick? Because
Yes,
I think
sir.
what Dan, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, but what I think Dan's trying to get at here is that we can hold the government responsible. We can hold the government accountable in ways that we just can't with these private companies. These private companies have power that rivals, in many cases, that of the U.S. government, and they are, because of the system we live in, able to continue doing things, even if I were to boycott them or a bunch of people because again, uh when it comes to holding companies accountable, the amount of accountability you can hold to them greatly is determined by your purchasing power. It gives people who are on the upper echelon things the ability
And
to
voting
totally
power.
crush
But you are
and
arguing my double-edged sword
well,
argument in
but
that
that's why
regard.
I'm wondering why you chose the side you did, because I feel that the government, while I don't necessarily 100% trust them, mind you, I think that I can hold them in accountable. So I would rather, if
Yeah.
it's a choice between the
So
two,
yeah.
I
So
would rather it be
yeah.
the
So
government.
so in the private organization kind of thing, the information that we're able to obtain based off of the points that Dan brought up with data collecting and data harvesting is something that we would not be able to understand with the Patriot Act had we not had somebody like an Edward Snowden. And so we would not be able to protest or even be able to speak on the behalf of the NSA watching our phones or anything like that had we not had a whistleblower. Now, we don't need whistleblowers to see Facebook doing those things. We can actually look at the data and mining that actually takes place. Yes, there's whistleblowers within companies like uh, uh,
Facebook.
no, but whatever company that was that took Facebook's data and used it for the Trump campaign. What was that? Oceanda, something like that. The
Yeah,
transatlantic.
yeah, but the leak that happened like a couple months ago was much worse than the what happened with the Oceana thing with the Steele dossier or whatnot.
Yeah. I get that, but I feel like the biggest leak that we've had when it comes to our data being harvested by our government was the NSA leak that took place in like 2014. I think that's
So
probably
my
the
question
biggest
is,
encroachment on our freedom that's ever taken place, and that was taken place by our government. So I think that's
yeah,
kind
The
of,
same as these
so
companies do the same thing too.
but
but
we can see those
I
things.
guess no, but we can't. We equally can't as much as we could see the government. I think that's the key on it. Like in both cases, we can't really see it unless we get a whistleblower, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, and like if we were to like get any information from the company, it would be through a situation of like having to invite the CEOs and the executives onto like congressional hearings and shit, and we all know how that shit turns out. It never
It's just
gets
stuff.
anywhere. It never
Yeah.
achieves anything. Like,
Yeah.
It can, if by simply putting the right people in power that doesn't exactly have the same interests to corporations as to currently many of them that are in power. I get to Dre's understanding that they says, this is pretty much on the table due to lobbying efforts and whatnot. But even with lobbying efforts, there's a lot of things have been done on the ground already that still can get legislation passed that would directly affect these efforts to have these companies be at least under at least some regulation, and the people who are in charge at least get responsibility for many of their terrible actions they have done with their services, such
Yeah,
as
100%.
I don't know about
Yeah.
you guys, but I really do not care about like my data being like used by these companies. Like I like all the stuff that Edward Snowden talked about, like yeah, it's like horrifying to listen to, but I'm sure that everybody on this panel has like location turned on right now on their phones, right? Like it's just I just don't think that like most people like care about this, and I don't think it affects them. Like people
That's what
still
brings
use
people to the right.
let me
You
bring an
understand?
example. Let me bring an example. Like, do you care of Google or the government having your dick pics?
No, I don't really give a fuck. They can see my fat scroll.
Yeah,
well, do I think they're gonna use it against me? No,
I mean, like it depends. Like if they were straight up
Hey,
No,
listen, I'm
Hey,
proud of my
I
dick,
want to know
okay?
a situation where the government will use your dick pics against you.
I would love it. I would love it.
Ready.
Yeah, like
I don't really care if the government or
So-
Google has like my dick pic on like some private server. Like they're not gonna
hey,
leak
hey,
it out,
hey,
and if
can
they
I-
do, hey, you all get.
You'll be like, hey, Base Knight. We know that your username is Base Knight, and we just set your dick pic to your boss to fuck with you because we don't like your politics.
No, wait.
But that doesn't happen. That's not going to happen.
No, and this is something that's really important. I want to knock down to Based. All right, we live in an informational. Sorry, Ashley, if I'm like stepping.
Oh no, I was just gonna respond to you more.
I just
So
wanted
I
to,
can
yeah.
go after.
Yeah. So I just want Based. You need to understand that we live in an information based like economy and world, and our objectives in those things like can actually like to argue Dan's point. The importance of the data collecting and the data harvesting and the use against you is actually something that can be felt in effect by a population. We can point to Burma. We can point to
yeah, but you're pointing to Burma, like we're in the United States.
No, just
yeah.
But wait,
Go on,
you guys
go
are
on.
Go ahead.
derailing this.
Please, Dre.
You're derailing this. It does not have to be as extreme as Burma, and it doesn't have to be as slight as you wanting something on Amazon and you get it advertised for it. It could be as simply as keeping you away from actually asking the questions that should be asked by your politicians, or asked by your politicians to you. And these are.
I just think I get way more convenience out of like and it like there aren't even like popular movements like supporting like getting our data out of like the hands of corporations and the government.
Why
It's
do you
like
think that?
it's like
Why do you think
political
that?
the political will is not there. Like it's
But
like
why do you think the political will isn't shown on the mainstream?
I can guarantee you that.
Well, there's plenty of people that know about it. There's plenty of people that we all know about it.
But
right?
why do you think that it's not like a grassroots movement though? Like
because
genuinely,
it's because the system that we live in, right, with them having all of our data, makes things easier. They get to show us things that we want. It makes things more convenient, right?
And you don't see that as a method of control?
I do, but I just think that it's convenient, right? And,
So
and I don't think people give a
it's-
shit.
No, but it's convenient to be controlled. So you're
Yeah,
like,
it can be in some cases.
But Dre, in general, I find that if it's the government that has this information, right? We can vote out we can vote out legislators, and we could try and get people in that would actually.
But the problem is that the amount of people that are going to be shown to you are the people that can afford to change that information on your phone. Do you understand that?
What?
So the people that you want to be able to put in those positions are not going to be
Okay,
advertised.
but what I'm
to
trying to say is, let's look at the government, let's look at a corporation like Facebook, right? A lot of politicians use Facebook for platforming or talking about their stuff. If Facebook has a candidate that wants to get rid of their power, right? They could just silently make them less likely to be seen, and their social media
It's
company,
called
so you're
shadow
likely to
banning.
find them.
It's called
Yeah.
shadow banning, and this happens. So I just want to kind of point out here that I think that the fundamental difference here is that we have different levels of where we would give up some of our freedoms to get a little more security or convenience. Obviously, very few of us, at least I would say, are total freedom or total convenience. You know, it's a spectrum, and so I think that when Base Knight says that it does make things more convenient, it absolutely does. Getting ads that target what I actually want, that's a good thing. But there are dangers involved that we have to be aware of
Yeah.
as you're putting out. Shadow banning is a thing that happens. Censorship is much easier to do when you can
True.
target people, like when you can
based off
change
of
the
their data.
algorithm to show them and push certain views on them and make other views hide
Obscure.
them because of the way
So what I
we do
was
things. That
gonna
said, I trust the government on this much more than I trust the private companies, because the private companies are doing this as we speak. They are misusing this as we speak. And while the government has been collecting our data for a long, long time, has been spying on its citizens for a long, long time, the
Yeah.
dangers of there are real too, but I can much more clearly see how it's having a desultory effect in the
Do
private
you see a
industry. Does that
clear
make
line
sense?
between large corporations and our government? Like, is that something that you see?
No.
They,
Okay, there's a large difference because, like, for corporations, from at least many of them that have at least a public like access to like stocks and whatnot, the only way you could get what you personally want implemented is have a large share of stocks, at least just to at least make a point to vote out people who are in the board of directors, and that's like buying your way into trying to get to change stuff personally. And many people who are rich do that all the time. And to the case, but then we look at government. All of it always has to go back to just simply voting, and it's one vote, and it's free. Like much freer to go and have change politicians within
But do you not
2 years.
understand that those
Yeah,
same
I
people on
do.
those
I do. I'm trying to give you credit to at least to what you're saying about that.
So, Dre, the
Sorry.
difference is, sorry, I didn't get my point out earlier. So the difference is, if the government does something, right, you can vote people into office that can change the government. But if a corporation does something, then you can vote people into office that then have to petition the corporation to then have to write laws to change how the corporation can act or do things that it's just a lot more complicated. When like we don't get to vote for who's in a corporation, who's on a board of a corporation, but we get to vote who's in our government.
Unless you
So
pay
we
your
have
way
a
in.
bit
Yeah.
exactly. So we have a bit more control of the government, even though both cases are bad. One's slightly less bad. One's slightly more in our control.
I will kind of give up ground on that, but in my opinion of today's day and age, based off of what Finez was talking about, is it fines or is it Finez?
It doesn't matter either way.
It's Fez.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, Fez. Based off of what Fez was saying, when we have these congressional meetings and we're grilling these corporations, you don't really see a divide between the corporation and the government in those instances. And so I will concede that we can vote. Like, you don't have to have any buying power. I will give Dan and Ashley that concession, that we don't need to have any buying power other than being born here or being a U.S. citizen to be able to vote and implement those changes. But the amount of information that's processed to you for you to be able to, that's going to influence you to change those things, are controlled by the corporations at this point in our informational economy.
Oh yeah, of course. But it's
And
just
so
one we can vote for and one we can vote for people to claim that they'll do something to change, which they might not do. So overall, I think like establishing a government, just to bring all the way back, I think establishing a government agency for health definitely has risks, but I do think that's better than like grants for private corporations.
Yes. Agreed.
Okay. That's
And I think the whole plan of the Biden administration was to do both. I think like the other part of his State of the Union address was to give more money to the. I believe maybe I could have misheard, but I think some of it was about like putting in these programs for even probably for private companies down the line, right? Like what if the federal agency needs a certain task to be done within the agency? They might contract out a
Yeah.
medical thing, and then like the money gets siphoned off that way. But
Well-
one of the other big issues I had with your or Dre, are you backing off of it, or are you still kind of on?
I'm
that-
still holding on to it because of the simple fact that I would prefer the intentions of somebody's, I guess, necessary. It's just a necessary evil. I guess the greed compared to actual political power. Which
only
they
thing
are,
I'll
like I
say-
said, they're both hand in hand. So it's
Oh, sorry.
it's a hard position to hold. So
Well,
The only-
is just to clarify, is your issue is that it's not fast enough? Is that right?
it's not efficient or fast enough. Whenever there's political, or whenever there's profit, or whenever there's a actual business involved, there's a level of efficiency that has to take place for stock.
That's wrong. That's
disagree.
absolutely wrong. You can see this in the health insurance industry, right? Like
But that's a
Medicare.
shitty industry to
Well-
equivocate to. That's like a shitty industry.
How
Well,
is
I
it?
mean,
Because of
yeah.
the relationship between health insurers and medical providers.
Yeah, and for sure, and to like a lot of people would agree or disagree here, that usually when people would get to decisions like it's not fast enough, to then a lot of people who end up being either position will say, well, we need to have a revolution, or we need to take up arms against the government or whatnot, and obviously, we're as being in the public platform, we're
I'm not advocating for any of
advocating
that.
for
Please don't.
obviously, we're
word
not
that.
advocating for that, but it goes to that same position that it doesn't exactly give to that same claim.
Yeah.
As I get what I mean.
Yeah, I know. I get what you're saying. That's the same argument that somebody from the alt-right would be able to use to try to overthrow the government. And I'm 100% like
And the left.
not, and I'm not advocating, or the left, and I'm not advocating for that at all. What I'm advocating for personally is there's actually a third party of like intermediaries between government action and policy implementation, and that's something that
we do that. We have that's called judges. They're already the third party.
So I just
Okay.
I just
I
wanted
think,
to
like-
hop in
like
on
if a-
something real quick. I think
Never
that
mind,
in terms of like the medical research industry, I think that while it has proven like successful, I think that the elimination of a profit motive in Arpa-H will while it may lead to more duds in terms of like research, I think that ultimately it's going to end up producing more lasting outcomes because
Okay.
they can go down lines that may seem unlikely to be
They
profitable.
can take
for,
risks.
like private.
They can take risks.
Exactly. They don't have to worry about like their funding being pulled or the future of the company or like some CEO that like can't stop tweeting, you know?
Or
the stock
Warren-
share or
Warren-
whatever. Yeah.
Warren
Yeah,
Buffett
exactly.
pulling out all of his capital, or something like that.
The
Because
only
he
thing
doesn't
I would
get-
say, Dre, is that you have two issues whenever you start commodifying like medical procedures, right? Or not procedures, but like research. The first issue is the issue of overcharging patients. So insulin is an amazing example, right? Like the idea that you have this life-saving treatment, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about cancer treatments. You have a life-saving treatment that is that companies under your alternative would be offering to patients, and it's like, well, they would be able to overcharge drastic prices, and
But-
oftentimes would make it unavailable for those patients to even get the treatment.
I
without going
would
into
actually
depth.
counter that though,
What's up?
because of like I was saying earlier with the balance of the order and chaos between liberal agenda and conservative agenda. I would say that heavy government regulation into that field would actually would be something that would be like there would actually be an elected official that we vote for that's specifically for that's in charge of handling that, but it would still be in the private sector, so that somebody that has a passion for it is actually going to be able to take over that business.
That's not a good idea, because then the private sector has their own personal interests within that private sector to do what they want within that
Okay,
sector.
all right. Hey, I'm done with this talking point. If you guys like, I can't debate lord all of this, please, and it's fine. The government, hey, the government can have Arpa-H. They're going to anyways. Whatever the fuck Dre Cloud says is really a mute point at this point.
Okay,
I'm
let's
sorry.
go to Wick.
I'm sorry.
It's just gone so far off of what I wanted to
It
say.
doesn't matter. Just take it back.
Okay,
Whatever.
sure. So I going back to the speech, one of the things that I did find I'm hopeful for in the speech is he mentioned microprocessors. I think it was microprocessors, microcircuitry.
Yeah, in Ohio, Columbus,
yes,
Ohio.
in Ohio.
The field of dreams, he
yes,
called
the
it.
increase in production there. That is very, very hopeful to me. Again, because of the situation in Ukraine, I'm worried about the situation between China and Taiwan maybe popping off, and Taiwan produces a lot of these things for us.
All of our electronics, or most of them.
If we can do that more at home, that is a good thing. So that is one thing I think I'd like to point out that from the Biden's speech that I really, really liked, that I really, really loved.
Thanks for
and I just
pointing that out. No, I wanted to mention that before, but that was I love that. Let's do that. Let's I've been saying that for like 2 years, right? The moment that I learned that we had this problem,
I finally tuned in and listened to you, Prime. You know,
Prime, you're influencing.
Yeah.
You're influencing POTUS, baby.
Exactly, right. Yeah, but like I've been saying that for like 2 years, and that like why don't we simply create these things ourselves, right? Like, yes, it will take a massive investment, but obviously it's worth it strategically. Let's create this, and just even from just a global logistics perspective, right? Now we're just relying on Taiwan. There was a factory in Japan. I think they had a fire there and it's damaged, and that one's taken offline. And so all these chips going through this one plant, this is a disaster waiting to happen. And it's a disaster already. So let's please go ahead, please.
There's another great thing about it too is one of the problems that has been happening a lot in the tech industry is the flocking to both coasts. You know, Silicon Valley, it's been driving up prices of housing, it's been driving up the cost of living, and more and more you see like the Midwest like having these problems of brain drain, where people feel the need to like live in these like mega cities that have like all of these tech opportunities. So Intel putting this like 30 miles outside of Columbus, Ohio, it's a geographical win too, for sure.
Yeah.
I wonder if that won't affect the politics as well in the long term, because again, as we know, the demographics.
Yeah, like 10,000 jobs, 10,000 like liberal like tech nerds living in Ohio.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It bring a lot more blue to these traditionally red strongholds. I'm wondering just how big of an effect it will have.
I don't exactly think that these companies like such as Intel has like an ulterior plan to make more democratic states.
Well, no. This isn't their plan, obviously. I'm just wondering if, because like you know the law of unintended consequences, when you take an action you may not intend for a consequence to happen. Yeah. And this is what I think might be some unintended consequence of this decision. But that's a speculation.
Then the issue will end up turning to those who end up having the opposite issue, where they end up getting to like conspiracy that they are going to take our jobs and make us Democrats and all the other kind of QAnon stuff we end up seeing.
So do you have hold on a second, debate board, did you have something to say? You unmuted yourself, so I wanted to make sure.
No, I think you can hear me, right? So it sounds like the executive order that Biden signed today was to do some sort of review. Is that right?
Are you talking about for the semiconductor plant?
Yeah.
It sounded like it. Maybe I could be wrong. But it sounded like he was pushing a bill to do that. Like, or let's include that in his budget. That we should provide funding for this plant. But maybe I'm incorrect on that.
Is it just one plant?
It's a massive
in
plant.
Ohio.
Yeah, it's a massive, super massive plant. Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah, I know. It seems like semiconductors are just yet another industry that the U.S. used to have a strong position in, that moved overseas due to, again, labor and regulatory costs that are imposed here in the U.S. And until we fix that, whatever this investment in Ohio is going to be, it's going to be hugely subsidized by the local government, the state government, and likely by the federal government, which all demonstrates that there's still something fundamentally wrong in this sector of the U.S. economy, whether it's legally or it's some regulatory problem. And until we address that, the weird thing is that Intel seems to thrive here in the United States still. So I'm not sure why other chip manufacturers can't, but
because it's cheaper.
And they outsource their semiconductors too, so it's not like they're completely manufacturing all of their shit here. So they're able to keep
not
those
100%.
prices.
Right.
Yeah, they could simply just go and make more fabs in the United States, and they already had previous fabs. Does everyone have an understanding what a fab is?
Yeah, fabrication.
Yeah, fabrication. Yeah, like they make semiconductors. There are only 4 of them, 5 to 6 of them around, and 2 of them are in Taiwan. And we used to have many, at least enough in the United States, but then sadly, much of through Intel and other companies have been wanting to ship things to Indonesia, Vietnam, I believe, was the most recent one.
Ukraine.
So I'm looking at an article talking about this, and if I have it correctly, it sounds like Intel is on its own is doing a $20 billion investment, and that later on, because Biden also threw around the number 100 billion. If you're talking to the CEO of Intel, he said this site alone could grow as much as $100 billion of total investment over the decade. So they're willing to invest $100 billion into this site. So Intel, it sounds like by themselves are doing it, and that what Biden was saying is that he wants additional legislation. I'm not sure if they have it written out yet, but additional legislation to further invest in that, so government legislation. He wants Congress to pass that. That's what seems what this article is saying. So.
Yeah, I think
just one quick second. It takes around 10 years to create a fab itself. So that's the point of how much money you're putting to invest in already.
Yeah,
we just did that.
Go ahead, Wick.
No, it's a long-term investment. It is something that we need to start now. I think that the government has a role here in kind of correcting market forces in a way, because we have the ability, we have the power, and I think we should. It serves our interests as a nation to have, again, as we've been talking about, these things in our land. But sometimes the market needs a little help. And in this case, this is one of them. And Biden introducing legislation to provide government grants, or I'm not sure if what the legislation is.
I can tell you. I can tell you right now.
Oh, please do.
So, all right. So the White House, so the White House wants to pass the USICA, United States Investment and Competition Act, right? And part of that is the Chips for America Act, which provides $52 billion to catalyze more private sector investments in the semiconductor industry, right? So it actually passed the Senate. It already passed the Senate, apparently, in rare bipartisan support. Amazing, right? And it just needs to pass the House. So
you're nationalizing manufacturing. I was gonna say that's a bipartisan point.
Is it not?
No,
it's
not national. That's not nationalizing.
That's not nationalization. Subsidizing.
No,
that's subsidizing.
Subsidizing,
which is completely different.
Subsidizing, yeah, not nationalizing. Yeah. But yeah, so I'm actually ecstatic because this looks like it could be a possibility.
The difference between nationalization and subsidization is that in nationalization, the government, whether that is local, state, or federal, will actually take control of the business. They will regulate it and run it themselves, kind of like Medicare is and nationalized medical insurance. Yeah.
Local utilities.
It's paid for by the tax dollars for its operation. Subsidization is basically saying the government is giving a private company money, and they're saying and with regulations and stipulations, and saying you will do it this way, and you will use this money, and it's for the benefit of the United States government.
Okay. Thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Yeah, but it's I guess me also sorry for responding so forcefully, I guess. But yeah, yeah. So it's a subsidization, which I think is fantastic. I wish I would. I don't know the exact details of the plan. The fact that it was actually bipartisan is a little scary to me, because then that means Republicans liked it, and maybe there's something in there that I don't like.
They don't hate everything.
They hate a lot of things. They hate a lot of things. And it's not that they hate everything. It's just that like for instance, with the an infrastructure act, right? I'm glad that got passed. I don't like all the things that got passed with it. I think the
They
reason why
asked for too much.
I
The left asks for too much.
what are you talking about? What?
The
No.
left
The
asks for
infrastructure
too
actually
much.
passed.
Yeah,
though.
yeah,
The
I
infrastructure
know.
bill
Yeah,
passed.
that actually passed. Yeah.
I know. But you
Okay.
said you don't like certain things of it, though, right? You said you don't like certain.
Oh my god. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that I think the investment was too small, certainly, and the only reason why it was so small is because we had to negotiate against ourselves, meaning the Democratic Party, because of Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. So, like, it's not that the left asked too much. Biden himself wanted a bigger package. He was fighting for a bigger package, and then we had to shrink that package. So it's not like a far leftist position to want to invest
need a
more
bigger
into
package,
America.
ladies?
But beyond that, like what I'm saying, I don't like everything that was included within that infrastructure package, which might have gotten the bipartisan vote of Republicans as well, like privatizing more roads. I don't see that as a benefit to the American people, where they have to pay tolls for roads they didn't have to pay for before. So that's going to be happening in the future because of this package, and no one's talking about that. That's a problem.
So I do want to kind of, maybe this is a tangent. So if you're not interested in discussing it, that's fair. But I do want to talk about how like I get it that there are certain things about this bill, the infrastructure bill, you didn't like. There are certain things I didn't like. But isn't that the nature of compromise? And I don't see that as necessarily a bad thing. I am willing to give up something. It's just like we talked about freedom and security. I'm willing to give up some freedom for some security. Like I'm willing to give the Republicans, if it can get a bill that I like 80% of it, if I have to give up 20% to the Republicans, that's fine with me. I'm okay with that. Is that something you feel is
Nah,
something we
toll
should be
roads
pushing
suck.
against, or?
Is this to me?
Oh yeah, because you mentioned you didn't like the compromise and stuff in the bill.
Don't pay the tolls.
Don't pay the tolls.
No, don't pay the tolls. He shook his head like, "What the fuck?"
No. I'm just trying to. So
They can't
it's
suspend
not
your
no.
license for that shit.
No. I hear what you're saying, Wick. Right. And look, like I said, I'm glad it passed. I understand there's going to be compromises. I just think these compromises are disastrous. I mean, I just saying I don't like what's in there, right? This will raise the price of just transportation for regular Americans and for just industry in general, because you got to pay a toll for roads that are previously public. I don't see how that benefits anyone, but the private industry, like the investment firms that happen to have bought those roads, right? Like it benefits no one. I don't get it. I guess the conservative argument would be, well, government doesn't know how to like run roads, whatever. And it'll be better this way, but that's never like the actual case, right? So look,
I'm wondering what the I'm wondering what the case against the tolls are, where you have, for example, here in Portland, we currently don't pay tolls on our roads. However, in the next year or two, we're going to be paying a congestion toll. We'll be taxed for driving on congested roadways. And so consequently, whether it's called a toll or a tax to drive on these roadways, is it a big deal to you that it's imposed by, I guess, to pay a private firm versus being remitted to the government?
I would absolutely love it to go to the government rather than a private firm, right? To speak in riches, and so okay. What it sounds like, because I don't know the details of what you're talking about, so I'm just gonna go off of this, right? So congested roads. Is there room to expand the number of roads there, right? Like, or like build more bridges or something else or like expand the number of lanes or something like that. I don't know, but let's say that was the case, that you had that option to expand these things, right? Well, then that will be public investment. Let's have public investment in those areas to actually solve that issue, right? Simple. You're saying, well, like, if it's money that's going to come out of your pocket any which way, why not a private corporation? Well, a private corporation isn't actually adding any value to this transaction, right? Like a private corporation putting a toll up on a previously public road does not, in the example you've put out there, alleviate congestion, right? If you could say that, well, maybe they'd expand the roads. Well, the government could have done that too, right? In fact, we have an infrastructure bill where we can be expanding roads, expanding lanes, and things like that. So I just don't see where the value added is for the private corporation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I was picking on your point about the imposition of a cost that isn't currently borne by motorists, right? That sounded like that was a sticking point. But I see what you're saying is you'd rather have that money remitted to the government because you think they might be a better steward in either reinvesting that money into a public good, roadways, than a private firm might be.
Yeah,
I get it.
I think it just increases their budget. That's all it does, and what they got to do is spend that money, and they don't spend it efficiently. So,
I think there's that. There's a reasonable argument to say, look, the nation's roads and highways are in the condition they're in now, despite government for a long time, in air quotes, investing gobs of money into it. Now we can quibble whether or not it was enough or not enough, but that's disprovable. It's neither provable or disprovable because we don't know what the perfect number would have been. And so if we're going to appeal to the stewardship of the federal government, well, I think we better be ready to really make that argument that the federal government can be a better steward.
Okay.
And I don't think they've proven that.
So my pushback against the conservative argument being that, well, look at the state of the roads, as they have been, is that throwing it back over to Wick, right? Talking about how Republicans have been all about disinvestment in the government, keeping the government from making, like, Biden was the first president to think of, hey, maybe we should invest in our roads and our bridges that are falling apart, right? Like, we keep getting, there's that engineering group that does the report card on America infrastructure, right? And we're failing great constantly. And it's not like this wasn't an issue. Other presidents have tried to do exactly this, right? The major roadblock has always been Republicans, right? Like, you agree on that, at least, right? Debate bar?
I'm not sure what you mean by roadblock. Roadblock to what?
To
investment.
Yeah, to further investment into our infrastructure.
Like higher taxes have been a
no,
problem.
I don't think Republicans are a roadblock to infrastructure investment. I think, as we saw in this debate in the fall and through the winter, is that, look, if we're going to invest more money, well, where is that money going to come from? That's a reasonable argument. Now, granted, Republicans, despite their long tenured complaints about Democrats being overspenders and whatnot, have been very poor stewards of our financial resources. There is a legitimate point, and there are Democrats who agree with that. We're adding money to the deficit to invest, again, an air quote, in these roads. And so consequently, well, taxes have to be raised. Services have to be reduced if taxes are not going to be raised. So we're making trade-offs.
Go ahead.
Or tolls.
I know. First of all, I disagree with this. The whole premise. I get why you, from a conservative standpoint, that's why you think that. But I disagree with the entire premise. That once again, we're having a military action, right? And I think a necessary one in Ukraine. I don't remember any Republican, not one, or Democrat for that instance, right, coming out and saying, "Oh, how are we going to pay for this? Let's see where we can cut." Because we are taking this military action. It just doesn't fucking exist, right? You understand this. I don't think you disagree with me.
I think, Prime, it does exist. And also, we have to remember that Republicans and conservatives would say that national defense and national security is the single priority of the federal government. And therefore, in cases where the federal government, where the government has decided that we are going to war, that there is not going to be an issue about spending. Okay.
hold on. Okay. I hear you. That's what conservatives believe. It's the one important task that they think absolutely must be performed by government. Okay. But if we're saying that there's a finite pool, right, a finite pool of money, then increased spending, right, would have to mean cutting somewhere else. But it never is the case when it comes to the defense bill. You can say that, well, we have to do the expenditure, right? But if you're going to be intellectually honest, then we also have to do the cuts on the end, right? So
Absolutely. Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
agreed.
right, then we can skip that one. All right.
Yeah.
That's the military-industrial complex.
I still
right there for
disagree
you.
with the premise itself. That there is that finite pool, but if you're going from that perspective, then I at least I congratulate you on being intellectually honest, debate board. On that. Yeah. So
I think conservatives would say, look, we can be in favor of imposing of turning over some roadways to private firms and imposing tolls. The trade-off, though, is a reduction in use taxes. The trade-off is a reduction in gas taxes. Because you can't
Tabs.
extract twice,
Car
right? You can't
tabs.
extract for taxes and then double extract for the toll, right? So the trade-off is turn it over to private enterprise. They'll impose a toll, but we're going to reduce the government collection of revenue over here to manage the impact to the taxpayer and the motorist pocketbook. Right?
But
that I think is a fair trade-off. But what happens is that second part never happens.
No. But hold on. Okay. So here's a big problem, right, with the tolls. So luckily on my commutes, right, when I regularly travel the world, I very rarely have to hit a toll, right? But there's some people who have to come across a toll constantly, right, for their people who go across the bridge between New Jersey and New York, right? Some people constantly have to hit this toll. The total amount they spend per year does not equal what they would be taxed for, right? Correct? The total amount that a regular motorist does that. The whole point of taxation, why that is superior from simply putting that in a private, leaving up to a private toll company, is that taxation spreads the burden across the largest population being the citizens. So it spreads the burden. Hold on. Yep. It spreads the burden. So that the total impact is less. So we're all paying into it, whether I use that particular road, that particular bridge, or not. But the impact is less, and so and that helps commerce, right? If I'm a company and I know I gotta transfer goods across this particular toll, well, that ups my costs, right? That ups my base costs, and it ups it by a lot if I'm sending a lot of trucks through there. So instead, if it's just a tax, right, general tax, the company, yes, they're paying something into it. We all are, but it's far less, right?
But the counter to that is when you say that their toll bill is much higher than their tax bill, that tax bill is encompassing multiple facets of their spending. It goes to gas. It's car tabs.
No. He talked about a specific.
registration.
He talked about a specific tax. He talked about a specific tax, rather than a specific.
I know, but what he's saying is that when tolls are implemented, gas tax goes down. The price for a car tab goes down. The price for car registration goes down.
It doesn't.
That's what that I know. He's saying that that's the principle of it. That's the idea behind it.
That should be
that's
made.
the trade-off that should be made, but it's not made, is what he's saying. And that's why you have a tax bill and a toll bill.
But no. But still, again, that doesn't. Sure, that would lower. That would reduce the impact. That would lower impact, right? Thank you. That would lower the economic impact to citizens in general, but not those specific individuals, not the industries that actually use those tolls, right? So it lessens the impact. But the amount of money, right? And some of these bridges, it's $7, $7, $13 to go across one way.
Yeah.
One way.
But look,
I'm gonna hop out. It's late. Take care, guys.
Yep.
Thanks for letting me on, bro.
Peace.
Later, man. So what he's saying is that price goes down for everybody as well, because that company using the gas to transport those goods across that bridge pay less in gas prices. pay less in the registration fees of those vehicles. That's not implemented. We're not saying that it
But
is, but
it's
that's
not
the trade-off
it's not
that's
enough.
proposed.
No, I'm sure we could find studies on this. That
I don't understand.
I don't
Sorry.
believe that the burden, the economic impact is equal, and you're getting it for an inferior product being a toll road. You're gonna say
What I
something,
don't
Franz?
understand is like how we're trying to introduce these other sort of expenses, right? I think the trade-off would be the taxes to pay for the roads and maintain the roads, and that okay, so that's one cost, one mechanism of the cost, and then the
Yep.
other way would be through paying for it in terms of toll fees, right? I think that is the real trade-off. I'm debate board or no, I think he left. Oh wait, no, debate board, if you could elaborate on how, or Dr. or Dre, could you elaborate on how those other costs are being introduced into the picture?
Well, currently, right, roads and so the federal government disperses money to the states for road transportation and road costs, right? The states also collect then revenue via all sorts of taxes and fees. Dre talked about car registration fees as being an example of one of those fees. Gas taxes, though, are a primary avenue for states to collect revenue for road maintenance,
That
bridge
adds up.
maintenance, construction, et cetera, et cetera. Now, what I was suggesting to Prime is that, and he has a valid criticism here, is if we're going to impose tolls on motorists, that is an imposition of a new cost to them, right? And I think conservatives would say in response to that, well, look, we're willing to impose that cost, but we have to reduce the current cost that is borne by taxpayers and motorists when they purchase a car, register a car, purchase gasoline, so on and so forth, right? But that trade-off has never been made. Instead, what we see is private firms, like in Texas, building roads, imposing taxes, but those residents there are still paying their state taxes for fees, registrations, gas taxes, etc.
Okay, thank you
Yes.
for clarifying.
That was the point I was getting across. And the gas tax and car registration for companies that you're speaking of that are going to be using this, that it's going to affect their bottom line, are going to be registering a fleet so high that those costs are going to add up, as well as fueling all of those vehicles in that fleet are going to add up. So those are things that do need to be considered when we're talking about the trade-off from taxes and tolls. And I'm not well versed enough to have a position on it. I'm just laying out the factors that are going to be included in my analysis if I was to be making that decision.
The only fear I would have would be the overcharging aspect, right? Like Prime mentioned, is how these tolls are very expensive on daily commutes, and so I think that you see this a lot with companies that will overcharge on services that you absolutely need to do, right? You need to cross that bridge every day. You have to, or you will lose your job. And so I think these companies might overcharge. But again, like the stewardship, I think goes back to what we were saying about the FARPA or the I forgot what it was called.
Arpa-H.
Arpa-H was how we have a little more accountability with the government in terms of how these taxes are done, although that accountability is lessened by the complicated factors of the thing is in the US there are various different levels of government that control these roads, right? It's like, interstate highways are I believe state level, or are some of them federal, some of them are local, municipal, like county level. Like there are so many different levels of government that it makes it hard, like who is accountable with this road, right? Which specific government should we vote? And it's not like the average American is gonna, and I don't even know the county commissioner or the fucking the
Department of Transportation.
Department of Transportation, right? So it's like, it's hard to make that argument of accountability when we can't even really like hold them accountable. But I really just do fear the overcharging aspect and how these people need to be
corporate greed.
Corporate greed,
corporate
right?
greed. Yeah, that's a fair. That's my base of argument too. Is that for the counterpoint?
If you're
Go
ahead, debate board, you go first.
Oh, okay. So to fines,
Mm.
just like states do with utilities, right? There are public utilities commissions. Um, we can hold private firms accountable for the tolls that they impose, or we could attempt to, much like we do on monitoring how utilities increase their rates to ratepayers, right? So there are mechanisms to do that. But I think what's more important is that gas taxes and user fees and registrations that we pay for our roadways at the state and local level, they don't pay the full freight of road maintenance. Um, there is a combination of gas taxes, user fees and taxes and whatnot, plus general spending, right, from the general budget. So currently we're subsidizing road construction, maintenance, and whatnot, not fully. We're subsidizing through general budget spending. What you see as high tolls is really a reflection of that. We're shocked because we don't really pay the full freight through our own motorist fees and
He's got
whatnot.
a point there.
So, and it's much like healthcare, right? We're always shocked by the real price of healthcare because we don't really pay the full freight, even with insurance. We pay a copay, we pay an office pay, and whatnot. So we're shocked when we see the real price of it. And
But
Prime, I see you shaking your head. I get your point. Is that really the real price or
okay,
not? But
you
nonetheless,
yeah.
at least for roadways, though, we know we're not paying the full freight through gas taxes and user fees and whatnot. So those high tolls, we do have mechanisms to monitor them and hold them accountable, and we also have to be cognizant that we're not paying the full price as it is.
Mm-hmm.
That cuts budgets from other places too, like we were saying. Like we were talking about with the military complex, is when you start cutting from the general budget, you're slashing funds from other, less important systems of government. But hey, I gotta go. I gotta go to bed. I got work in the morning. I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you. Hey, Wick, you got me a couple times today. I appreciate it, dog. Hey, thank you, Prime,
Anytime.
for having me on here. Hey, Doctor, or fucking debate board. Good
Hey,
shit. Hey,
Doctor.
nice,
take
Fez.
care, Dre.
Yep.
Okay.
See you, Dre.
Yeah.
I think what's
continue.
interesting here is that the consistent appeal back to the federal government. I mean, it's not like the federal government hasn't been involved, as well as state and local governments, in our road and bridge and other comparable infrastructure needs over the last 10 decades. I mean, and yet here we are in this what appears to be a constant state of disrepair. And yet there are the constant appeals from Democrats and liberals and progressives that if we just threw more money at it, if we just throw another $1 trillion at it, that there'll be some magical change in how the government operates. I mean, it ain't a matter of not enough money, because we see a huge variance in what states spend, and we see huge variances in the state of, but we don't see a huge variance in the state or condition of that infrastructure. So why the continuing appeal to the federal government to spend on this?
So, from my perspective at least, I get you when you say that just throwing more money at it won't solve problems. It very rarely does. You have to spend the money correctly. You have to address the correct issues. You have to put the dollar bills towards this in the right way. And again, I'm not an expert at infrastructure or road maintenance. So if you ask me like where should I put the money, I don't know. But we can see what happens when we privatize, when we take it further out of the government hands. Look at the prison system. We've privatized the prison system in many cases, and that has been an unmitigated disaster. I think for how these things are run and how these things are done. It has a lot of unintended consequences because, again, the federal government does not have a profit incentive the same way that a private entity would. That private entities have a profit incentive that the government, at least, does not have in the exact same way. And that's why I would advocate for that's why when you say why do we appeal to the federal government for this, even though we know sometimes it does a bad job, is because I think that in our current system it is the best option still, even though it is not a great option. Does that make sense?
Well, it makes sense. I mean, but this general appeal to private enterprise has profit motive, therefore we cannot trust them with a thing. I don't see the United States government coming up with a mass consumer operating system product to integrate individuals with their personal computers, right? So profit motive has a lot of benefits and has a lot of surplus um, uh, um, positive effects on
Sir, but we're
society.
talking about infrastructure, right? Like not products so much as an infrastructure, a way of moving around products and things
Oh,
like
I
that.
know, but I was just referring to your appeal to,
Fair. Okay.
dismissing private
Continue.
enterprise for their profit motive, right? Okay, so I'm not sensing that um, that we can so easily just say, hey, look, we can't trust private enterprise to do this heavy lifting because of profit motive. To me, that's not a reasonable argument to make. We could look at, for example, where Prime lives, I think in Texas, right, is to look at their roadways that are financed and built by private entities, the quality of those roads, the tolls that are paid for the use of those roads and their utility, and then we can perhaps compare that. Right. I think that's a worthwhile exercise that's already being done by RAND and by even federal government agencies. And I don't think those results necessarily tilt towards state and local government continuing to do this.
I don't have the data on it in front of me. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I
Right.
would definitely agree with that the so how do you increase profits, right? When it comes to a total, like there is a it's not just the profit incentive, not that we have to make a profit, which we fine. If it was simply that they had to make a profit, okay, a reasonable profit, sure. But they have to make, I can escalate the amount of profit they make for their own shareholders, right? If it's a publicly traded company, then you have to escalate the amount of profits you're making. How do you do that? You either up the price of the tolls, or you lower the service quality, right? Like taking this out of specifically roads, right? We saw this in California. We saw wildfires in California. Why? Because the energy company was privatized. Right, the electric company was privatized there, and instead of like doing maintenance, line maintenance to make sure trees were nowhere near the lines, right, which is just basic maintenance, they just started cutting back on those, cutting back, right? Going, why not? It upped their profits, and then also caused several devastating wildfires in which people lost their lives and homes were destroyed, right? It's so for the price of maybe cutting costs, which I that even then, I don't think private businesses ever cut costs. But for the theoretical price of cutting costs for the electric bill, you destroyed thousands of acres of land, including towns, and people lost their lives. So yeah, it's extremely expensive to privatize.
Prime, I don't accept your use of that incident as I guess proof of just dismissing profit motive. I work for the federal government in the Department of Energy for a high voltage electricity marketing and transmission organization out here in the Pacific Northwest. We have our own wildfire problem that you could arguably say is caused by our siting decisions. And that has led to extensive, not just wildlife fires, but also huge economic damages to farmers and local businesses and even residents. So there isn't anything inherently about profit motive that caused the incident that you referred to, because we can see government spending resulting in comparable incidents. So it's simply saying, they have a profit motive, therefore we can't trust them, I don't think is a reasonable
what
argument to
comparable
make.
incidences to this wildfire in particular?
Well, we had several incidents out here in the Pacific Northwest, in western Montana, northern Idaho, even northern Nevada, where what I think a couple of $100 million in damages were caused. No, we didn't see entire towns wiped out, but I don't think the profit motive is what caused an entire town to disappear due to a wildfire.
No. Like, I if you could expand on that. You're saying a couple of million something in damages of what? Could you explain this incident?
Oh, well, no, not a single incident. Multiple incidents of wildfires over the last 3 to 5 years in the Pacific Northwest have racked up a couple of $100 million in in damages and costs
this
to local
is
economies.
due to the energy company specifically? Like,
Sure. So, for example,
Okay.
where there are high voltage power lines that are sited, right, there is vegetation that grows in these right-of-ways. In a windstorm in August, that vegetation is blown into those transmission lines or even the facilities that are located there, and you have shorts and you have fires that are caused. Those fires spread.
Can you?
So that is.
I want to look into this. So you're saying that it was a government run, like a fully government run, like not all privatized run energy corporation, and they haven't been doing proper line maintenance, like as has happened in California.
No. I'm not saying that.
Okay.
You can do all the proper line maintenance and still have accidents happen.
No. But they did. But hold on. But they actively did not do that maintenance, right? So I understand what you're saying, and that like accidents can happen, and that's beyond,
Maybe I missed that detail.
Yeah, but no, they were actually
analogy
sued, and I can look it up for you. But if I'm remembering correctly, and I don't mean to, if I'm misremembering anything, then I apologize. But they were sued by the government for their lack of line management, and I believe they lost. They had to pay like a massive fine because of what they've done. So I'm going to look that up to try to get the facts. But they were actually negligent. They were actually negligent, and for the profit motive.
Well, and I can see how so that someone could arrive at negligence here. So, for example, I mean, where I work, we have finite resources to do right-of-way management, right? We have finite resources to upgrade equipment. We still have equipment on the high voltage system out here in the Pacific Northwest from the 1930s and 40s, including analog equipment, and so consequently, accidents can happen. Things can happen without negligence. Now, in your case that you're citing, maybe it was pure negligence, and they just simply said, "Look, we're going to save a few bucks," and as a result, directly, lead to a fire. But what I'm trying to suggest is that you can see these events happen without it being negligence and without it being profit motive.
Certainly, but you must admit that the risk goes up when you add this incentive to cut costs. So, like, the profit incentive in and of itself isn't a bad thing. It can do wonders in various industries. It can do wonders in various sectors of our economy, but it cannot. It fails at solving certain problems. It creates perverse incentives in certain ways, in certain places. And as again, I'm not familiar with the case that Prime is citing.
And I'll tell you right now, Pacific Gas and Electric admitted in 2018, the 2018 campfire, the state's deadliest and most destructive, was caused by its faulty equipment. In a court hearing, a judge read out the name of each victim. 84 people died. So PG pleads guilty to 84 wildfire deaths is the name of the article, right? And then also it was fined millions of dollars because of its negligence. So that's the one that happened. The big campfire, it's called the campfire. That happened in 2018, and then I believe in 2020 and possibly 2021, but at least in 2020 and 2019 there was multiple fires. It wasn't just one; it was multiple fires caused by this company and their negligence. So yeah. And Anna Barr, thank you for the raid. Go ahead.
Yeah, because people are asking what my point is by pointing this out in chat, and I just want to kind of try to explain. It's because we have to realize that the government serves a purpose that a profit motive company cannot. And yes, accidents happen. Like even government can be negligent. I worked in the military. I know this is a fact, but there is an added risk when you add profit motive. And as we can see in the prison system, in the medical system, and various other systems, it actually has detrimental effects. So in those cases where we can demonstrate that profit motive causes more harm than good, I think that the government should step in and take control to varying degrees depending on the thing. That's my whole point. It's not a huge point. Maybe it's a little silly point, but that's the point.
It's not a silly point. It's a very important point. Okay.
Thank you, Prime. I love you, Prime. Sub to Prime. Too. Everyone sub to Prime.
Hey, for the new people who jumped in, hit that follow button. We have these conversations all the time. We're having a conversation about whether private investment or public investment is better when it comes to infrastructure. I think it's an important conversation to work these things out. And I think there are a lot of people who have bought the line that government can't do anything right. And I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, debate board. But I think there are a lot of people who've bought that line. And I think the evidence says otherwise. That the government the government does so much around the world around us, right? And if the government suddenly failed, you'd find out real quick how much government does. Like if the government literally just like collapsed, you'd find out very quickly how much it does for the individual. But you hear this line, it's an easy line to say, well, government can't accomplish anything. And people just repeat that and put no thought into it. But I disagree. You can respond if you want.
And I
Well, no.
Oh, my bad.
Go ahead,
Fine.
Fines.
Oh, I'll just say I submitted an article, and I'll submit it. Well, I don't need to submit two on this, but one of the articles I submitted was about the $125 million fine for Pacific Gas and Electric. The main charge that the state brought to the company was about the fact that it negligently did not update its infrastructure, right? So we're talking about a company that whether or not it's about the profit motive, about wanting to reduce costs, it was still negligence that led to the fire, right? But I don't know how much, I don't know if we really have the evidence to say that they were trying to necessarily reduce costs. Maybe they just, maybe there was an error, maybe management wasn't on top of the project, or maybe they didn't think it needed to be updated. But I think there should definitely be more public oversight over these sorts of things in terms of maintaining these very crucial pieces of infrastructure that can potentially kill 80 plus people in the future. That's all I had to say.
I can give you an example of government doing a bad job of managing infrastructure. What's happening in Hawaii, where there's that I believe
the fuel storage thing.
Yeah.
The red something.
Red Hill, Red Hill something fuel storage. Yeah. That's terrible. I mean, and it's a big problem. It was known forever, and they've hid the issue, right? And here's another one of bad infrastructure management. That was the levees in New Orleans, right? Big problem. It was known it was an issue, and government did not actually solve that. So it's not as if I'm saying that through government, these things will always be handled properly. No, we have examples of massive failures on the government end, right? But I feel like those failures don't come from the profit motive. I think profit motive increases that, right? Like I feel that sometimes it'll come from one incompetence, right? But a private company could be equally incompetent, sure, right? And I don't think you disagree with that. I think it's possible it could be equally incompetent, or it could be come from like a cover up, right? Like we screwed up, and we don't want anyone to find out. And if we do anything, right, if we actually make some sort of update, then we will know that we screwed up. Okay, but that can happen in the states and in the government and in a private company. It can. There's a whole list of things where things can go wrong, including an accident, right? That are just the same when you look at government funding or private funding. But private funding also, on top of all those other things, has the danger of the profit motive leading to disastrous outcomes.
And there are cases where the profit, even with those risks, the profit motive still is the best tool we have. I think, I'm not a socialist. I'm only socialist curious on the weekends when I get really drunk. Sometimes I dabble in it. But by and large, I think the capitalist system has done wonders in bringing people up out of poverty. There's a lot of good that it can do. All that I'm trying to say, and my broader point here, is that there need to be common sense regulations, and when it doesn't make sense to have profit incentive in a field, then we need to remove it as much as possible. And I think, again, we can point to various industries where that's the case. And I'm not an infrastructure expert, so I hesitate to point out infrastructure as a place where it would be. I just don't know, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend I do. But like especially in the medical industry with pharmaceuticals and things like that, that has led to really bad outcomes for us as a nation. It's just terrible.
Do you have a response to well, what Vic said or what I said, debate board, in terms of the the extra um danger of the profit motive leading to bad decision making? And I guess where I would counter, before you respond to that, where I would counter Wick is saying that uh yes, I think private corporations can do all kinds of amazing things, and they have done all kinds of amazing things, right? For that profit motive. But, and I think, as you already agreed, there are certain areas of life that it creates those perverse incentives. So when it comes to necessities of living, right? Healthcare is a necessity of living. The insurance companies have a perverse motive to deny care, right? To up their profits, to deny care despite you paying into them. When it comes to infrastructure that we all need to live, when it comes to our roads or anything else, right? To do our work, the profit motive is to just let it fall apart, or just up the price, one or the other, or both, and go from there, right? Like there's other, and when it comes to, well, I'll leave it there because I'll start.
It sounds like you're just agreeing with me rather than countering me, though. Like I don't disagree with anything you just said.
All right, fair enough. Debate board, did you have a response to any of that?
Well, no. My instinct is, when I hear folks appealing to profit motive as in this way, is to be rather dismissive of it. There are so many more individual factors going on in a business decision making process that have nothing to do with increasing profit motive. Operational decisions, right? And consequently, this general appeal to profit motive is just unpersuasive to me. I see how businesses make decisions on how they're going to invest on the capital side of their business, right? And how they also make decisions to expend money on the O&M side, on the maintenance operations and maintenance side, and none of this has. Very rarely does it ever come up that we're trying to increase our profit. No, I mean, there are reasonable and rational operational decisions that are made that can result in huge tragedies, in these huge incidents that we see. Now, maybe the Camp Fire was something different. Maybe the Dixie Fire was something different as well. But when we see billions of these transactional decisions being made every year in the U.S. economy, and we don't see a massive number of incidents like this, what I would characterize as massive, I just don't see profit motive being a very good or persuasive appeal.
Okay, well, two things. One, hey guys, if you're enjoying this conversation, support the channel. Subs to the channel, gift bits, or gift subs. That's how I do this, how I keep this up and running, right? So support this channel. If you have Amazon Prime / Prime Gaming, use that in this community. We're always here to provide you content. So if you appreciate that, you want to see us stick around, then subs to the channel, gift bits, or gift subs, help us out, or use our PayPal button below, anything like that. It's the first of the month, so we have the gifting board. Was it sorry, the list of top gifters, right? It's completely empty, so if you want to get to the top, now's the time to do that. So be so kind, help us out. Subs to the channel, gift bits, or gift subs. Okay, but debate board, you're saying we don't see a massive amount. Well, we do, right? These are little tragedies and small and large tragedies, right? So the Camp Fire is a big tragedy that we see, but if you want to expand it in general, because that's what you just did, right? You expanded past simply infrastructure, and you just said, well, companies, they're making smart investments. Well, like we can look at the food industry. We can look at how they are constantly trying to cut regulations, right? That keep our food safe, to undermine safety inspections, right? And to cut costs in terms of like how animals are stored. I'm talking about the meat industry right now, right? Like how animals are stored, and the cheapest way to feed their animals, which might be an extremely unhealthy way to feed their animals, and these things bounce back to us and the cost of foodborne illnesses that we have to deal with. That's just one example. But like, and there's polluting the environment, saying that, well, we could safely dump this, or we could just dump this illegally, and then because the fines are so small, right? We'll just consider a legal dumping fine as the price of doing business because we're saving money otherwise by dumping that to the environment, and then we deal with that in terms of either asthma or like cancers or what have you. So yeah, there's lots of these tragedies happening. You're saying that it's not the case, but I think it is the case. Constantly we're seeing these things, but sometimes they're large, like a massive wildfire, and sometimes it's small, like your fucking mother getting cancer and dying.
Small.
No, I see your point. I'm disagreeing with you, and that's fine. I appreciate what you're saying. I just again, this general appeal to profit motive as being an argument against private enterprise getting involved in something, I just don't find very appealing. That's all.
And that's not
persuasive, not appealing, but persuasive.
Okay, I mean that's fair. But when we talk about like companies, that's their only reason to exist is to make money. A private corporation's only reason to exist at the end of the day is to make a profit for themselves and their shareholders. That everything they do, every decision they make feeds into that at some level. And I'm not saying that they don't make safety decisions, that they don't make other decisions that are in their maintenance framework. I understand that they do, but at the end of the day, it's to keep them profitable, and that is what makes them exist as a company. It helps them survive. It's the only way.
Well,
in our
we
system
shouldn't.
that they do.
Well, what I think you're referring to as profit motive as is a proxy for something else, because we see federal, state, and local governments also engage in a variety of activities that harm the public. So
That's not good either. Yeah.
And so you have to wonder, well, then what is, if it's not profit motive, then what is incentivizing that behavior? Because the government isn't immune, not just from bad
Certainly,
actors.
there are other incentives
it-
in play. Okay, just real quick, Dan, let me respond to him. That there are other incentives in play other than profit motive that can lead to bad outcomes. When a politician is incentivized to get reelected, and so they have to cozy up with the companies and things like that, and lobbying corporations so they get the funds needed to get reelected, that can create some bad outcomes. Again, there's all sorts of incentives at play that again can lead to bad outcomes, but that does not excuse the profit incentive for being harmful in certain cases. Would you say that, and I'm asking because I don't know, debate board, in your opinion, is there any case that you would say that the profit incentive is a bad thing, that we should not engage with it, that we should take it out of whatever program or whatever facet of government or the market that it's playing in?
No, because I think profit motive, again, is just a proxy for something else. And I think the maximizing profit is really just an extension of being an efficient enterprise. And so consequently, we see individuals making poor decisions, right? Whether in negligence or in violation of the law, or in some good faith to maximize profit, to be more efficient in what they do. Again, I'm just not seeing that government is immune from the same types of factors in decision-making processes.
Dan?
Yeah, let me answer that question. Like, I could easily say, I would never want to have a profit motive for the police, or firemen, or many other public services like trash, like doing the trash
pickup?
cans,
Yeah.
pick up, and all that, and the dire effect is then when it eventually becomes profit motive, it then becomes pay or play kind of scenarios. Like there's even all that, it's been going on for a very long time, One of the most famous things is like Crassus, one of the triumvirate Roman people back then, goes around and says, "Oh, looks like you have a fire. I'll buy your property if I could take it out, if you I'll put out the fire myself and all that." And people do, and usually companies, if given the liability, saying that everything's for profit by doing such thing like that, it could be up for any grabs in any way, and it'll be very much in a matter against the public interest. And
Well,
and I
Dan,
don't.
you've seen where police departments are not only accused of, but then we determined that police departments had quotas for writing tickets. Right?
And
So
that was set by probably politicians and people that
whatever
we
the
can
case is, though,
change.
it demonstrates that government
We
is
can vote them
also
out.
motivated by a desire to increase revenue, right? So again,
Well,
I think what we're not really talking about is profit, the motive to make a profit by itself. It's the individuals behind these enterprises that make decisions that are either unethical, illegal, they violate regulations, they're negligent, whatever. It's the people who are fallible here, not this generalized sense of profit motive.
So
Okay.
it goes down to
So
this.
hold
Oh,
on. So all right. Well, I'm not sure we'll make any more progress, but thank you for having that debate with us. Hey guys, if you're new to this channel, and you haven't been around here before, hit that follow button. We do these kind of conversations all the time. Hit that follow button. Make sure notifications are on. So you know when we're going live. We're live 6 nights a week. We'll be live tomorrow. All right. So hit the follow us on Twitter. Jump to our Discord. We're the Heart and Soul of this community. And if you missed anything, check out the VODs. Right, and on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. And consider becoming a YouTube member, supporting the channel that way as well.